Go ahead and do a regular, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any noes? It looked like everybody was saying yes. Okay, there we go. I'm trying to move other procedural things along a little faster so that we can get through all of this. So now we are going to move to do we have to do presentations? Yes. Okay, so what I'm going to do, so we have two presentations. This is a fun meeting because it's kind of like you have blocks and we get to move them all around. So the first presentation we have tonight is a proclamation designating March 2025 as Red Cross Month in the city of Sonoma. And I believe that Andy Withon is here to receive the proclamation. Are you here with us? Okay.
Actually, I'm here in his stead.
Okay.
Leland Montel.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll read the proclamation, then I'll ask you to come up and if you want to say a few words to accept the proclamation. So we're designating March 2025 as the American Red Cross Month of the city of Sonoma, whereas this March we celebrate American Red Cross Month by recognizing the compassionate acts of people in the city of Sonoma and by renewing our commitment to lend a helping hand to our neighbors in need. Whereas since Clara Barton founded the American Red Cross almost 150 years ago, generation after generation has stepped up to deliver relief and care across our country and around the world. The volunteers, blood, and platelet donors, the financial supporters who now give back through the Sonoma-Napa Disaster Response Area and the American Red Cross remain unwavering in their commitment to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of today's emergencies. And these voluntary and generation contributions shine a beacon of hope in people's darkest hours. Whether it's delivering shelter, food, and comfort during disasters, providing critical blood donations for hospital patients, supporting service members, veterans, and their families, saving lives with first aid, CPR, AED, and other skills, or delivering international aid and recognizing loved ones separated by global crisis. So this work has uplifted our community and is truly made possible by those who selflessly answer the call to help. So I, therefore, Patricia Farrar-Rivas, Mayor of the City of Sonoma, do hereby proclaim March 2025 as Red Cross Month, and I encourage all citizens of the City of Sonoma to reach out and to support its humanitarian missions. Thank you. And so I would like to invite you up. Can I get your name again, please? Leland
Montel.
Leland Montel.
I'll give you a card in a minute.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so on behalf of Red Cross, I am the program manager for Napa and Sonoma, and we have over 120 volunteers. As you know, the Red Cross is a voluntary organization. However, I am the paid employee in Napa and Sonoma. So on behalf of the volunteers, I'd like to thank you very much for this proclamation. I know we ask you to do it every year, and it's a heavy lift, and we're very grateful that I'm going to just say that this comes from on high, and we're grateful that you guys are willing to do this, really, very much. And it's our honor to be able to serve the people of the city of Sonoma. We have 15 volunteers here in your town, so anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. And so I'm going to ask you to come up. And did you want to bring other members? Of
I
the
would
Red
like
Cross?
to, and we have a little token for you, which will be delivered by one of our younger volunteers. Her name is Clara Canariato, and she'll present you now with a token, a very small token.
If you want to go, we can take a picture.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. It's a good thing John's not doing this tonight. All right, so And our second proclamation is designating March 2025 as Women's History Month in the city of Sonoma. And I will just say I had some friends visiting town, and they came upon a history tour that was happening around the plaza, and they were just so thrilled that it was happening. It was really exciting for them. They kind of joined in, and they just got the whole history of the women in Sonoma. So it was very, and they were very pleased, and I think it made their trip very special. So, okay, so whereas women have always played a critical role in the shaping of the economic, cultural, and social fabric of our society through their participation in the labor force, working both inside and outside the home in leadership positions, and through creative inspiration, and whereas Women's History Month provides an opportunity for schools and communities to expand and enhance what our children and our community know about women's role in history and their contributions to the development of this nation. And whereas the story of American women is the story of women of all ages, races, and cultural backgrounds who led campaigns for equality and civil rights, advanced professional and educational opportunities, founded entirely new enterprises, and contributed significantly to the arts, sciences, and humanistic causes. And whereas women from every background have long realized that an uneven playing field will never bring equality or justice, and we all need to eliminate bias and discrimination entirely for our lives and institution. The 2025 theme for Women's History Month is Moving Forward Together, Women Educating and Inspiring Generations, which celebrates the collective strength and influence of women who have dedicated their lives to education, mentorship, and leadership. And whereas Women's History Month is both a call to acknowledge outstanding women we know by name and to pay homage to the dedication of nameless women who contribute to our nation. So I, Patricia Farrar-Rivas, Mayor of the City of Sonoma, in California, along with the City Council, in recognition of the significant role played by women whose courage and vision inspire hope for today's women to make tomorrow's history, thereby proclaim the month of March 2025 as Women's History Month in the city of Sonoma. Yes. So, and we're very fortunate to have Nancy Padian and Joanne Brown here tonight to accept the resolution. Did you want to say a few words?
Thank you. Nancy could not join us. I have no tokens of appreciation. It just all comes from the heart. I'd just like to remind everybody that the reason we have this is because it started with a middle school teacher in, I think it was Sebastopol, who said, after looking at her curriculum in a disappointed fashion on a Saturday when she went home to prepare a lesson plan for Monday, there's nothing in this about women. Apparently, it was a particular period that they were considering, and they were talking about women and coming west, right? Well, they didn't talk about women coming west, they talked about the westward movement. So she created a curriculum, which then became very popular and got circulated. And then Sonoma County itself went ahead and designated this day as Women's History Day. Then it expanded to a whole week. And then somebody got the idea of why couldn't this be national? And it did get to President Carter, and he proclaimed a week Women's History, big leap. And then finally, women taking very small steps, right? So we finally got to a place where President Carter then kindly passed it on and said maybe we should have a Women's Month, a Women's History Month. Now that didn't get much traction because it takes a requirement, it takes a procedure from Congress to then ask the President to designate something as important as a month. Right? And so the first president to do that was, it was Obama officially to do it. But it has been continued since then, and I'm waiting this year to see if we get the same kind of proclamation from the White House that we got from you guys. But I'm very pleased to have the one here from the city of Sonoma. I cannot speak on behalf of the rest of the country, but everybody else in the county, all the other cities are doing the same, but you were the first, and so thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you, Sebastopol, early on. Yeah. All right, moving on. Now I think I know where we are on the agenda. Now we are going to move back to comments from the public. No, we're not going to do that yet either.
Yeah, I
We're going to
think
move
this- I
to the
think the-
special meeting.
Yeah, I think you'll
Okay,
continue the
thank you.
special meeting.
Now we'll continue the special meeting. And what I would like to do is suggest a period of time for us to check in, but let's try to add, 15 to 20 minutes to this discussion, just so that we're not doing a completely open-ended on this. All right, so continuing on where we left off, we were looking at an example of a 4-district and an example of 5 districts, and looking to see those if that was going to make some decision in regards to those maps, whether the maps were going to play a role in our decision of whether or not we want to have 4 districts with an at-large mayor or 5 districts with a rotating mayor. So, other comments in regards to the maps that we just saw? Yeah, we're gonna try to go to 6:30, maybe to 6:35.
Well, if we could put up the, when last we left off, we were looking at one that, a 4 version and a 5 version that divides, where the Napa street is dividing, like, there you go, on the west side. And I think, I know we want to make that a decision tonight regarding 4 and 5, I understand that. But if we have, I think another option would be if we have a 4 version and a 5 version with the Nathanson Creek, the Napa, and see if we have the right dividing lines. That might even be more helpful to the public than looking at 5 versions of 5, but none of them really have the communities of interest that we want. So, I mean, my thought is to look at the 4 version and the 5 version that's closest to what we think the district should look like, and maybe see if the public, if they can focus on those, maybe they'll have a better sense, and maybe they'll come back and say, like, oh no, that 5 is perfect because that's exactly my community and I like that red area or whatever. I just think that's more helpful than just this amorphous 4 and 5 with all these various combinations. So that's my suggestion, is that to choose the 2 maps, one of 4 and one of 5, that's closest to what we think should be the dividing lines, and then go
Versus
from there.
making the 4 or 5 decision.
Right, and then look at all the 4 maps, and then all the, I just knowing the town, and I think just knowing you guys, I think we will probably are wasting some time if we just look at 4 and we go back and look at all these different 4 maps and all these different 5 maps, that we should really focus in which are the ones that are closest to how we like, and then have a 4 version and a 5 version. Maybe it'll come very clear, oh, then that's the one. And also, I think it'll help the public sort of focus on what we're looking at, because some of them are radically different.
Well, let me ask, we're looking, the ones we're focusing on, and others, I'll have others comment on that, but we're currently focusing on draft E and draft B. And so just keep that in mind, and then I will go to Councilmember Gurney, because you look as you would like to make a comment.
Well, I just wanted to say that the conversation this evening has actually moved me into a firm position in terms of 4 versus 5.
Oh.
So if you were interested in trying to
Very
determine
interested.
Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Oh, you share with us.
Don't let me interrupt progress. Well, it's just the more I thought about it, and quite frankly, the mayor's comments triggered in my mind the balance, if you will, of responsibility in terms of representation, and the burden that a general mayor would have to behold. And so I think that that the 5 district makes more sense in our scenario, and that's where I've lined up.
Okay. in that case, let's focus on, because that's clear then. I feel, the consensus, but then can we look at which maps in the 5 version?
Before we move on, do we need a motion? We do not need a motion, thank
No,
you very
okay.
much, great. Okay, so then let's look at if there are the 5 maps, so maybe we start by looking the one with the Nathan Creek as the border and the one with Broadway as the border for that difference between 2 and 3.
And maybe since we had that intervening presentation, we can just go quickly through the maps in the 5 scenarios. And we could try to figure out where there's interchangeable pieces, but maybe not a lot of perfectly interchangeable. Draft map A had the Western District going all the way north, had a compact South District, and then had the Northern District be kind of what I was referencing, kind of that bike path fire zone area, but not including the plaza. Then the dividing line is Broadway between 2 and 4. Draft map B has the west side split, as was discussed. In the south, it uses the creek, which allows Broadway to be unified on both sides of the street in the same district in 2. And then has the northern district that goes down into the plaza and incorporates it. And then draft map C, it keeps the western district whole, and it divides the both northern and southern districts. So the southern district is divided along Broadway, and the northern district doesn't really comprise that entirety of the fire zone or the bike path area. It creates that separation with the plaza being in the purple district. And I think some of that is, there are that little lip on the green district too. That is just basically done for population. The same thing between 1 and 5. Some of those boundaries might be able to be adjusted, but we are just kind of dealing with population equality there.
So I want to just make a comment on this map, just to see as people think about other maps, because we can still make some changes to this. So, for example, when I look at this, one of the things I like about 1 is I do like that it does contain that business district. It's, that is somewhat, except for I think Safeway might not end up in there. It's in there too? Are we at 5th? I think if Safeway ends up in 5 versus 1, doesn't it? Okay, never mind. I could be wrong. And then the other thing is I would want to see a map like this moving over to Nathanson Creek. I like that idea. And then maybe that does, because what I like about this map too is that we do have a significant amount of people that are in that high fire district across 2 different districts. I like I like looking at the business districts. That's why moving over to Nathanson and not being on Broadway, so that where we have business districts that they are in one district. I think that that's helpful. They are kind of the root of our economy, other than the other wine industry business. All right. So those, just when we look at that, I was just using that as examples as what we can do. Am I correct? Is if we take one map and then 1 or 2 maps or 3 maps and playing around with them. So thinking like these 3 that we choose don't have to be perfect. They just have to be going in the right direction, and then we can further play around with them.
Yeah, and you could even give us direction, because not only am I here, but also our staff is watching online and looking at the maps as you're discussing. You could say, hey, we really want to focus on draft map, pick a letter. And but we also want redistricting partners to come back to the 4th hearing with a map that, here's the themes we want to hit. We want to create a district where the business communities are together. We're using Nathanson Creek as the divider. We're creating a district that's going to have the western split into 2 districts. And we want to have the plaza be in the same district with a more downtown area or something like that. You could come up with the themes that you want us to hit, and we could try to come back with a map that meets those criteria the best we can, so that you would see what that looks like. And then at the 4th hearing, we could even bring up and have a laptop and go in Districtor and live line draw, make adjustments. If you watch the Healdsburg meeting that we did, the last meeting there, we actually did go and start drawing lines and moving population so the council members and the public could see why either, something was possible or why it wasn't possible.
So I would suggest then, and I'll see if my fellow council members are in agreement with me, is that we focus on these last 5 to 10 minutes on the themes that we're interested in. And there can be a X versus Y themes too. So, but what are some of the themes that we want to think about? So I'm going to, if people are comfortable with looking at that that way, then I'm going to ask each council member if they are ready and wish to comment on the themes that they would like us to be focusing on. Councilmember Deering?
Compare the draft in the B and another the draft C. I find out draft C includes all major mobile home community together, because the district in the one here includes the 3 mobile home the community in the north, and all in the south there is the Raymond community behind and the Lucky in the supermarket also. From time to time I heard a lot of the similarity, a lot of the similar questions, concerns they have.
So that would be a theme of socioeconomic mobile home park for a complete Western district. But then other council members have expressed the idea of having that west side kind of divided north to south, which was kind of the competing theme, right?
That was my concern. And I just feel that Sonoma sort of operates in these quadrants. People on the southwest side, there's a there, and I like the idea of keeping the mobile home parks together. I certainly do, but when you do that, you divide that northwest quadrant. That, like, Olson Park is kind of the center of that quadrant. You've got half the people, they're in different districts, and I think there's some advocacy that needs to happen around that park and around the bike path in that area. It seems to me that that northwest quadrant feels very much like a community of interest, including the mobile home park, which is adjacent, as you pointed out, to the commercial area. And that keeps that whole commercial area together, and then that sort of keeps the Napa commercial area. That's just my preference on that. I just feel like that Napa dividing line is very distinct, and the 5th Street West, from Montini going west, I feel like that area is a cohesive community, is a neighborhood. And I would hate to see it divided.
And I have one comment about the mobile home community, just kind of theoretically thinking, if we're looking at if there's a significant number of mobile home or renters in one area, then they would that representative would represent the issues of that constituency, whether or not they lived in their district or not. So they could also represent the interests of other, so I don't think we have to have all the mobile home
Right.
in one district, I guess is where I'm getting to on that. And so, but I like the idea of, I do think that B does these are very specific districts that I look at and see as, when I think of communities, as communities. And I like the plaza and area around the plaza. I like that that's all in one district, so.
I believe right now, based upon comments I've heard as well as my own reflections, that B does check quite a few of the boxes. The other thing I just want to remind my fellow council people is that for a community our size, I'd like to believe that even if we are district, the decisions that we make are going to be based upon what's in the best interest of the community. And if the two mobile home parks are in two separate districts and there becomes a big issue that comes up there, I'd like to think that we'd be open-minded and we'd be good listeners. So at this point, I see draft B from a gross way looking quite responsive to my thoughts.
What was the deviation on this particular map?
5.2.
Thank you.
And we can come back. One of the things that we can do in this draft map B is come back with the actual raw numbers of how many of the population in this District 1 are from the mobile home parks and how many are from other areas, and then do the same thing for draft plan A to let you see, you know, let's say theoretically that the mobile home park community accounts for 36% of District 1 in this map. Is that sufficient enough that the mobile home community would really have that strong voice, be able to influence the outcome of the election? And that would be, I would say yes. I would say that that would be a block of voters that would be significant enough. If in draft plan A you do add the additional mobile home park, but now they're 38% of the population instead of 36, I'm just riffing, it might not be enough for you to say, well, we really, that might be okay. You know what I'm saying? And we'll give you the raw numbers at the next hearing, before the next hearing.
Yes.
And with regard to draft B and the sort of snipping and rotation piece, I would probably want to, in that sort of right-hand quadrant that has Harristy Drive in it and Montini Way, I have a hard time not wanting to keep them together in that quadrant, because
In quadrant 5.
yeah, and so perhaps there could be some adjustments that could be made, because that along that either side of Fifth Street West there, I mean, that's just a natural, and then on the other side the barrier is Montini, and that makes, to me, a natural geographic barrier. I think the people in that little area would wonder why, how come we're over here and not with our buddies over here?
I'm really guessing it's a population equality.
Yeah, I'm sure,
yeah,
I'm sure,
yeah.
yeah, but I think that, I can see that there's some tweaks that could be made with the others to figure that out. And then, but that's the whole point of, if we come up with a map, and I'm glad we did, that we kind of like, then we can sort of drill down on this street versus that street or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's choose this map. I would suggest we're choosing this map as one of the maps that we would want them to do further tweaking and moving around with. Is there another map that we would like them to be looking at as well?
I think fellow council members have good points. Right now, I understand. Right now, I prefer draft B.
And I think that the themes that we're looking at is, let's say, renters, mobile home, low, economic areas, people with lower incomes. Then the other areas that we're looking at that came up would be the fire hazard areas, and then the plaza areas, and then business areas. So how the business areas fall in. Are there other themes that people think we should be adding on to this that I have not mentioned? I think one of the things that surprised me when I looked at the Latino population, they were actually pretty well spread across Sonoma and not necessarily just in one or two districts.
Yeah, what is striking is that the Latino population is relatively spread. However, what in the northern portion is where a lot more of the Latino population is citizen voting age population.
Yes.
Latino,
Yeah.
rather than Latino kids or non-citizens. And so that is a difference that probably has to do with the socioeconomic status of that area versus the socioeconomic status of other areas that might have more children, say.
Yeah.
What we can do is, if we use this draft B as a template, we could come back with a draft B2 or draft B3 to give you some small alterations to this. Or if we look at, like the area that Councilmember Lowe was talking about, and find that any movement of that causes it to go to 15% deviations, we can explain how or why that is and kind of illustrate that in some slides. And then again, we could bring draft map B up at the next meeting if we wanted to and do any live line drawing. One tip for the community that's watching, if you want to go in, open up draft map B, which if it isn't already in Districtor, we'll make sure it's in Districtor tonight. You can open it up, start making changes. When you click save, it's going to allow you to assign a new name to it and a new number so that you'll have your own version of draft map B with whatever changes that you want to see. So that's a great way to make alterations, and we'll make sure that that's available on the Districtor site. If not now, then in the next probably hour.
Well, I think that we are done with our business for tonight. And thank you very much. You were very
That was
helpful
great.
in our process.
Great.
And now I get to move on to the regular agenda.
Okay.
And we are going to open up now for comments from the public on items that are not on the agenda. Yes.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Carla Noyes. I live off of Madrone Road. I'm here to introduce you to an innovative and natural method for reducing flooding in the Nathanson Creek watershed. That's the creek that drains down First Street West. Beaver Dam Analogs, or BDAs. These structures are human-made, yet mimic the natural dams constructed by beavers. They consist of wooden posts driven into the stream bed with woven plant material. They work by slowing the flow of water, allowing sediments to settle, creating pools that can absorb and store water during heavy rain. This reduces the speed and volume of the water downstream, mitigating flood risks. Last spring, for an independent study project, I generated a report for the Sonoma Ecology Center focusing on improving fish habitat in the Nathanson Creek watershed. This report identified 39 properties that would be ideal for BDAs. I've given the report to the Ecology Center, but they say they do not have funds to implement it. There's a grant funding opportunity from Proposition 4 coming up that could pay for these projects, but the Ecology Center will need to partner with you. It is in your interest to implement these structures. Please contact the Ecology Center. Thank you for considering this valuable tool in your efforts to reduce the risk of flooding of nearby homes and businesses on First Street West. I'd be happy to discuss this further. My contact information is in the notes. May I leave my notes?
Thank you very much, Carla Noyes. Appreciate it. And thank you for your patience waiting as well. Other comments from the public that in regards to items that are not on the agenda?
Good evening, Mayor Farrar-Rivas and City Council members. My name's Carol Marcus, 873 First Street West. A week ago Monday, I attended the vigil on the plaza commemorating the 3rd anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. There were approximately 50 people in attendance. I appreciated the comments conveyed by Councilman Wellander on behalf of the mayor. At that gathering, it was suggested that citizens speak before the Sonoma City Council to urge you to issue a public statement in opposition to the United States' current position of switching sides in this war, and that it would sure send a powerful message to our federal government if all city councils across the country would do the same. While I understand that this council is hesitant to involve itself in matters outside of Sonoma's city limits, Sonoma is in the enviable position of having a sister city in Kharkiv, Ukraine. The Sonoma Sister Cities organization has been very dedicated to showing support to the citizens of Kharkiv. I feel that it is now important for the city to issue a public statement in opposition to the current stance the United States is taking, and in so doing, show support for Kharkiv. Alarmingly, I can think of many more actions that the federal government is now taking that will have or are already having a direct effect on the citizens of Sonoma. But I am choosing this moment to focus solely on Ukraine. Please let the city of Sonoma's voice be heard across the country. Autocracies thrive on silence and on fear.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Farrar-Rivas. It's a mouthful. And City Council, Robert Demler, First Street West. I did not plan to speak tonight. I would have worn a suit about this issue that was just raised. I think I can speak for the sister cities. I'm its vice president. That we appreciate all of the great cooperation we've received from you all on the council, from the city staff, and especially from the community. This is a very tricky time. There's a better word than tricky, but it's an unsettled time in our country's history. And there's several quotes about, if you're silent, you're taking the position of the oppressor. I don't want us to be silent in this issue, and I do support what Carol just said. It is a strange time, and I would appreciate you all giving serious consideration. We had a group of young people come several meetings and begged you to take a position. They were young people. I'm an old person. I'm begging you to take a position. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Can I just take a quick show of hands to see how many other people want to make public comment? So we have one other. Okay, that's fine. Please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My first name is Pather, last name is Dalton. I'm an immigrant, 50 years this coming December 16th, sworn in by Judge Ferdinand Hand as a citizen in Mobile, Alabama. So I'm here to bring attention to the amazing organization, USAID for International Development. As you know, the funds have been held against a law that was passed in 1974, the Impoundment Act. And so fortunately, the founding fathers have three branches of government. So district justice ordered that money to be put forward. The present administration tried to block that, and kind of creeping over the line today, the Supreme Court issued that those monies be released with some clauses. So that's good news and good hope. So my intention here this evening is to encourage us all, citizens, to be conversationally informed on issues that come up in conversation on the street, in the parking lot, in shopping centers, where all kinds of stuff is said that's a lot of times is, including myself, not fully informed on issues. So it's hard to be informed on all the issues, but I'm encouraging that on such issues as the W Health Organization that we've now withdrawn from, the Paris Climate Inspector Generals in various federal departments, that when that comes up, that we have a kind of a brief understanding of what they're about, what WHA does, what the Paris Climate does, so we can have not shouting and screaming at each other, but having some sense of informed information. For example, the organization I'm bringing attention to here tonight, the International Development, founded by JFK in 1961, what does it do? Global health, disaster relief, socioeconomic development, environmental protection. For how many countries? For 100 countries. So as much information as we can on the topics that seem to be dividing us left, right, and center, so that we can have intelligent conversations and inform and encourage one another as citizens of this great state, and of this great country. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Patty. All right, moving on. Thank you. Appreciate all the. Yeah, if I could make sure my. All right, so we are now going to council member reports and comments. Our meeting dedication. Do any of the council members have any meeting dedications? No? Okay, then we're moving on to council members' reports and comments and announcements. Do we have any comments or announcements? Okay.
I just came from LAFCO today. There was 2 actions. both fire district consolidations. Sebastopol City is now going to be part of Gold Ridge, as is Monterey. And we're losing our chair at LAFCO, and I'll talk more about that, but she's been there for, I don't even know how long, but she's just been appointed to the County Planning Commission. We're very sorry to lose her. She's been great.
And we're happy to get her on the County Planning Commission.
Your county is very blessed. She's quite elegant in how she runs a meeting and does her homework. She's great.
All right, so any other reports? Yes, so
Just real quickly, on the 13th of February, the library Library Advisory Board met, and probably the biggest outcome is that they've now decided to meet monthly, and they will be initiating bylaw changes to allow that to happen. Also participated with the Finance Committee for the city on the 24th of February with the mayor, and you'll hear more about that on a future agenda item tonight.
and Councilmember Ding.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a few items to report. The first one, that is on February the 4th. It was a raining day, and the mayor and I got together, received a state delegation, the Fiona Ma Treasurer, and visit on the hospital, Sonoma Valley Hospital. The purpose for her in the trip is to, check out and $6 million that is a non-interest or very low interest of this kind of money, how you spend. And she was very happy, and also the deputy and the state and the treasurer also and visit the site. And also she, concerned about on the local and affordable housing. And also we went to the parking lot and see, and if not possible. And right away I talked with the, planning and department and David and the city manager, and see we can, each party we can gather together to do something else. This is a very good example. And although the hospital, the district, and the city council are not belong to the same government and organization, but we always work together and do something good for our community. And the second thing is the February the 7th, I went to the Zero Waste, the Sonoma, the meeting. That is the, that is not a regular meeting. That is the ad hoc, committee, and making an evaluation for the executive director's performance and also her contract with the county. And then what else? Oh, that is another thing is February the 20th, and I represent our city council member Sandra Lowe to attend and the Sonoma County, the mayor and the council member legislative committee. Yeah, yeah. I'm alternative representative, and I didn't got you the permission. I find a job for you. That is a vice chair. I don't want to see out in Sonoma always on the bottom of the list because we are small. We are far away from the 101. If you can accept next time, then you can officially say accept. If not, they will elect another one. Sorry, I didn't get the permission from you.
It was, thank you, very thoughtful of you. In fact, the next meeting we're going to hold in Sonoma, and we'll discuss it at that time.
All right, yeah. Thank you. That is hand over to you. And the February the 20th, also, I was attending SOS board meeting because I'm the city council member and also an SOS board member. So we reviewed last month's performance. The demand for the food still is very strong, and our the financials also needed to improve, increase our revenue, and also how to control our expenses. Another one is is, oh, okay, that is the, also is in the February the 21st, I also entered the Zero Waste Sonoma on the general meeting, and we passed the draft copy of the budget 2025 to 2026. That is all my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Wellander, Vice Mayor Wellander.
It's Ron. Thank you. I had a chance last week to attend the Sonoma County, it's the Homeless Board. And I think the point I'd like to just to share with everybody is the fact that there is an unsettled feeling right now as far as what's going to happen from a funding standpoint. So I think we're all kind of anxiously waiting because, as you may know, the county receives, I think, in excess of about $5 million every year to address some of our homeless needs. And right now, there's a big question mark. So I share that anxious moment. So that's what I want to share.
All right, so I have several. I'm going to be very quick with this because we have a lot ahead of us. But I wanted to, on reporting on commissions, we have transitioned where John Gurney will be the City of Sonoma representation for the representative for the Sonoma Valley Library Advisory Board, and I will be the alternate just in time for them to go once a month from every other month. And okay, so on February 5th, I attended the annual tourism meeting at Ukisi Winery, so of the Sonoma County Tourism Department, Business Department, where they showed trends of tourism in California, Sonoma County, and City of Sonoma. Overall, kind of 24 was a little bit more of a flat year, but we're pretty much in line overall with the state and the county, and so not great news, but not bad news. February 6th, I attended the board meeting for Sonoma Clean Power. We were looking at the report on the number of customers that are in Clean Start, which is 80%. If you're in Clean Start, that's 80% hydro and renewable, and 12% delivered from a California independent systems operator, which is mostly natural gas. That's 97% of the customers at Sonoma Clean Power. And then if you are in Evergreen, which is a premium cost, but it's all hydro and renewable, and that also allows Sonoma Clean Power to help change state laws. It's used as an exhibit, what it's like, what a system that is all renewable really looks like, and that's 3% of their customers. Wanted to report too that there are now new wind turbines that are reducing bird mortality. I'm not exactly sure how much, but in the past I've had many clients very concerned about that issue. And then just also the Geyser Calpine owners, we have a geothermal facility in the county, and that is the largest geothermal facility in the world. And Sonoma Clean Power is their primary campaign is looking at the commercial, agricultural, government customers to see how costs can be reduced. So they're looking at everybody, and their primary issue right now is how do we reduce costs. Okay, February 12th, I attended the Sonoma restaurant industry meeting, updated them on our goals, our general plan update, and redistricting. On February 13th, I attended the Sonoma County Mayor and City Council Association. So the board, the mayors met, and we selected our board of directors and members of our community for the board of directors and selection committee. We voted on those here at council the meeting before that, and everybody that we voted in got in, with the exception of, for the Sonoma County Agricultural Preservation Open Space District Citizens Advisory Committee. The person that we had planned to vote on deferred, as did our second choice deferred. So we voted for Alex DeCarli of Petaluma, which was an unusual situation. And then the only other one where there was a difference was the Sonoma County Consolidated Oversight Board. We had selected Stephen Zolman of Sebastopol, and Jackie Elward of Rona Park was elected to that position. So I'm not going to go through them all because that would be there's quite a few of them. Then on February 19th and every third Wednesday, there's a program with the mayor on KSVY. So it's a 60 minutes to talk about what's coming up. And so that will continue on. On February 19th, I attended a community meeting with Supervisor Rebecca Hermosillo, which was an organized of the Sonoma County Social Services Support Organizations. On February 24th, we were both at the City of Sonoma Finance Committee, and then on February 26th, attended the Sonoma Valley Citizens Advisory Committee meeting, where we had a presentation by the County of Sonoma's Public Infrastructure Department, so a focus on roads and pavement presentation and general road maintenance. And then I attended this on the 27th, the Sonoma Realtors meeting, also giving them updates. And then on February 28th, our city manager and I met with Leonardo Lobato of La Luz to understand the services that they offer to the mostly Latino population in our community, but actually anybody can go to them for services. All right, and there we go. Now we are going to move on to the next part of our agenda, and I am going to ask our city manager if he has any comments or announcements.
I do. As you just heard, we have a lot going on in the city. I will try to keep this quick. I will start with the fact that we do have a newsletter that we do publish twice a month, and it's got an enormous amount. It's packed with a run of opportunities and for everybody from community events, engagement opportunities, celebrations. And I'm going to rapid fire go through this because you can go online and look on our website for more information. But please sign up for our newsletter. It's a wonderful publication that gets put out by Sarah from our team. Larry Murphy Bridge dedication is coming up on March 14th. We have the Alcaldesa reception honoring Kathy Wicko-Wicki on March 20th. We have the Treasure Artist reception honoring Margaret Hatcher on April 4th. We have the Sonoma Art Walk, which is the first Thursday of every month. That actually stops at the end of April, so the next one will be April 6th, so please plan on attending that, the final one of the season. We've got the 5th Annual Earth Day Photo Contest, which is active right now, so if whoever is picked for that will be adorning the walls here in the City Council chambers, and all the other submissions will be here as well. The Student Creative Artist Award is currently open as well. Online questionnaire for our cemeteries, for if there's interest in a pet cemetery for our community. We're interested to hear from the community on how we can expand that. Along with that, we are moving forward with adding new columbariums at mountain and veteran cemeteries. So if you're interested in reserving a spot, you can contact us on the website, on our city's cemetery website. I also want to acknowledge the Valley of the Moon Garden Club. If you've walked around the plaza, the roses look amazing. They're all pruned, ready for the season, and some have been replaced. So I think we are going to see a wonderful bloom coming up here as we move forward into next year. A couple other quick updates. As you may have seen in the paper, the RRFB installation at 3rd and West Main was completed. We did just found out we received a grant from UC Berkeley for a complete street safety assessment, so we're looking forward to working with UC Berkeley on that to look at some of the key areas in town. And we're going to be starting, we started this plaza striping, so if you're out in the plaza and you see people working, we are restriping and repainting a lot of curbs, so we'll be refreshing the handicap striping, refreshing the red and adding new red curbs per council direction from a few weeks ago, and green curbs, loading zones, and we'll be restriping the mid-block crosswalks, and there'll be slightly different orientation in terms of how those work, and we'll put out more information about how that is, but you'll see some improvements there. In addition, the Sonoma Overlook Trail, the upper part of Sonoma Overlook Trail, the rehab project started today, and that's expected to go for about 2 months. So if you are hiking up there, part of that trail will be closed. If you go to our website, there's a lot of good resources and other places to hike in the community, so it's a good way to try new trails if you're looking for a hike. And then real quick, the Chase Street Bridge, we just found out, also won an award by the NorCal Engineering Contractors Association for the working between an owner, a city, and a contractor on how to do a project and successfully. So we'll be receiving that award, I believe, in the next month or so. Not sure when that date is, but glad to hear that. And one final thing, we are finalizing an agreement with the county, Sonoma County Transit, to host their electric bus here in our yard. So we're looking forward to having that. So we will have, I believe it's the 32 that will be electric and moving through our community and staying here in the community. So we're excited to support them and work in a partnership with them. And that's what I've got for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and probably the highlight of every meeting. Do we have any remarks from our city attorney?
No comments this evening. Thank you.
All right, moving on. We're going to move on to item 7, the consent calendar. Do any of my council members like to pull any of the items on the consent calendar? Seeing no, do I have a motion?
I move approval of the consent calendar. And then I know we get public comment.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Yes, okay.
Public comment?
Oh, public comment, yes, thank you. We won't vote first, yes. No public comment? So would you like to, City Clerk, take the vote, the roll call?
Sure. Councilmember Gurney?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellander?
Yes.
Councilmember Lowe?
Aye.
Councilmember Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Farrar-Rivas?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
All right, now, I think, well, one of the reasons many people are here tonight, this is very exciting. Moving on to 9.1, a resolution ratifying the 2025 City Council goals. And I will turn that over to our city manager.
Great, thank you so much. This is an item following up per the workshop we had on January 30th, where we convened an all-day workshop with the City Council on identifying what our goals are moving forward in 2025. These goals are important for a number of reasons. One, that they find consensus among the council about where the direction we're heading over the next year, understanding the resources we have, the limitations of resources, and it also drives, as we move forward, our budget process, which we're starting right now, which will be adopted in July, end of June. So it drives resources, it drives budget, and it also drives the priorities of where we spend our time moving forward over the next year. So it's an important conversation to have. I appreciate the time the council took to have that conversation and produce what I have here. These goals, which are in the packet in the slides we'll go through, were updated slightly and tweaked a little bit the language just to make sure that they were consistent, that they were achievable based on what we think as staff can be accomplished in this year. Some of them were written very specifically for a reason. I can go through that as we move forward based on some comments from the public we received. We are looking now for ratification of those to make sure that there's still consensus from the council that these are the goals we want to move forward with in 2025. Any feedback, tweaks, modifications of these are welcome at this point if that's something that you want to do tonight. We will then take that and I'll let you know what I'm going to do with them. I'll take these goals. We will work with our boards and commissions. So my plan is to meet with every board and commission and go over these goals about what you've set in place. Those boards and commissions will then work with their staff liaison to develop a work plan for the year to make sure that the work they have planned for the year are helping move these goals forward in a productive way. I'll also be meeting with all of staff to go over these goals to identify how we're going to move forward with them, work on work plans, identify how long it's going to take, do we need a budget for them, and how we can accomplish them. And then they will be incorporated into the budget process as we move forward into the end of the year. So that's how we'll move forward from today after the adoption. So with that, I'll go ahead and kind of go through, and we have identified 5 goals from the goal setting session. Housing, parks, recreation, community services, economic development, financial stability, unification and annexation, and climate mitigation and adaptation. So these are high-level goals, high-level aspirations, and then within each one of these areas we've identified and council's identified some key strategic initiatives that they'd like to see move forward within these high-level goals. And so I'll start with housing. This is the biggest one that had the most number of items included, and I apologize for the small text there. Hopefully it's readable. There's a packet online that has a printout of these as well. I'll quickly go through these. Implementing the housing element, continue streamlining our development process and policies. So this is something that we've started in earnest last year to identify ways to do things more efficiently, put more things online, work with our boards and commissions to identify how we can move things through the system in a more streamlined fashion. Identify incentives for affordable housing. This is currently underway with our fee study, and so you'll get a chance to see that here shortly. When that fee study is done, we'll be coming to you with those fees to determine how do you want to incentivize those affordable housing through fees, and then we could also do that through process and prioritization and other ways to incentivize. Renter protections is another one, and that's something we've talked about. We do have a housing, the housing fund that has funding in there, so looking at what is that a potential use of funds for protecting renters, which goes right into the next item, which is what is that plan and how do you want to use the housing trust fund? And so that's something we need to talk about as a council to determine how to use those funds when we have them and how best to use them as we move forward. Exploring the partnerships with the school district and private landowners for housing options. So as the schools are looking at their property and potentially closing down schools, we want to make sure we're in those conversations, supporting them through those conversations. That's happening, and you'll see that in the general plan with language that the schools are currently on with their land uses to allow flexibility and opportunities for them to do things that they might need to do moving forward. We'll look at monitoring housing development targets. So this is one that could use, not sure what's, just gonna give that a second. Does everyone hear me? Okay, so we're gonna monitor housing development targets. Those are monitored through our housing element that we have to do each year with the state, but there is a desire to look at how are we moving forward in a way that can achieve the goals we have with our RENA numbers. And so looking at what strategies we have to both address the numbers themselves, but also policies, strategies, and other things to make sure we do see that housing both at all affordability levels. So we'll work on how that looks. Prioritizing affordable housing and workforce housing and senior transitional housing solutions. So again, this is just working with our boards and commissions. This is important for them to hear. Because when they start looking at policies that they want to put in place, how are they aligned to prioritize and really drive, move the needle on those type of housing. Participate local housing policy advocacy with regional state organizations. As staff, obviously we can't advocate, but we can participate and provide information, educate on housing policies, but you as council members obviously can advocate, and that's something that you get asked to do on a regular basis. So we'll work with the council at a staff level on an education standpoint, but working with council on where you want to advocate and work with our League of City partners and our federal partners, lobbyists, to make sure that we're advocating in the space that you want to see move forward. Conducting a housing summit to identify housing solutions. We've already started conversations on this, working with regional partners on how we can bring a housing summit to Sonoma and then really focus on solutions on what's worked in the state, but also in the region and what could work here locally. And then continue providing service support for our homelessness and under-resourced in the valley. And so this is a critical thing that it shows up in the budget each year that we fund and work with our nonprofit partners to make sure that our under-resourced and homeless individuals are served through the valley. And I'm going to just stop here and ask the mayor if you'd like to stop and just do each one individually before we move forward.
Yeah, I think I think that'll be the easiest if we just do each one and then move forward. So at this point, we'll have the council ask questions of our city manager in regards to our housing goal.
I have a quick question. What is the balance right now on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund right now? It's a two something, right?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but
That's
do.
fine.
I'll look in the finance while we're talking here. Maybe we can
Yeah.
pull that number for you.
Councilmember Wellander, Vice Mayor Wellander. Rod.
I'm curious, I know we have a couple of potential projects in the offing down in the southern part of town, which would require some sort of possible annexation. Would that would also fit in with kind of the overall subtopics that we have here?
Absolutely. That would be kind of achieving our housing goal, would producing additional housing. As part of annexation, there would be a housing component to that. And then also as part of that, there'd be an affordable component to that as well. So we would look at, that would touch a lot of the pieces within the housing goal, is annexation for that purpose, not just for annexation's sake.
All right, I think, any other questions? And do we want to have public comment per item or wait till the end?
I think we probably want to, my recommendation would be to wait to the end, and then they can hear the conversation from the council, and then they can weigh in on
So
what
we
they've
will
heard.
move on to our second And just a reminder, these are not in priority order. They're just in order.
They're not in priority order, yes, but housing seems to always be at the top for some reason. Parks, Recreation, and Community Services. So this is one that was on last year as well. We started to make some movement on this, which you'll see later tonight. One of them is planned for a dedicated Parks and Rec department. That has been talked about for some time. Obviously, Measure T talked about that as well as we move forward on that. There is an item later tonight to, if the council wants to continue with this being a goal and to achieve that, there's an action tonight that you could take to make that this one's move forward to the next step. Progress on the development of a park on the west side of town. Again, this is one that has been talked about for a number of years. There's some funding in the CIP currently, having a resource in place to help move that forward in a way that brings the community together to identify that would be important. Enhance pedestrian safety and accessibility throughout the city. Part of the grant we just got from UC Berkeley will assist with this, but also the work we're doing in the general plan and looking at other, our traffic safety committee, the work they've been doing identifying areas such as the flashers that we've been putting up, but also looking at key best practices that we've talked about a lot. You've heard the work that the feedback we've been getting on the general plan in terms of what needs to be doing, what needs to be in place to build that connectivity through town. We'll continue to work on that. Identify ways to increase tree canopy, shade, sidewalk network, benches. This is one that obviously we need a lot of work on. As mentioned in the goal setting session, we have removed a number of trees. PG&E has been one of our partners here this year that unfortunately has been taking out trees versus putting trees in. So we are looking at new creative ways to add new trees, and yeah, with Arbor Day coming up on Friday, hopefully this time next year, and if we have a position in place, we're going to be celebrating Arbor Day with planting a lot of trees in a different way. Consideration of establishment of green links throughout town. So this is a concept that's been put out there and presented a number of times about the importance of those links throughout town. And this language was written very specifically consideration. We did get some public feedback on this in terms of making this language more direct in terms of implementing. We did write it this way because this is being looked at as being considered in the general plan. So as we put information in the general plan, it does have a public process it has to go through. It needs to go through the public process. It needs to go through the environmental review, planning commission, and then council makes a decision. So without asking you to commit to something tonight, I'm putting in there as consideration so it could go through the public process in the correct way. That's the rationale for that in reaction to the feedback that I've received by email over the past week or so. We do the development of a plaza master plan. This is one that has been talked about. We have started with a survey. We're getting a survey complete of the plaza. That will help also determine how we maintain the plaza, where the areas that need to be maintained, and we'll get that nailed down. Generation of funding on the plaza, continuing efforts to make the cemetery self-sustaining. We talked about that in my update. We are adding more capacity. We're looking at pet cemetery opportunities and other things. Strengthening support for our nonprofit organizations. We do not have a recreation team that runs programs. We rely on our nonprofit partners. They're incredible, wonderful, that provide services from young age all the way through our seniors, and it's those we need to make sure that we're supporting those as we move forward. And then really amping up our arts programs, projects, and partnerships. And you just adopted our policy recently, and so taking that to the next level in terms of turning that into programs and projects. So that's what came out of the goal setting in this for this goal this year.
Do we have any questions on this section? So that being said, we'll have some language that I will present during the discussion in regards to one of the goals that has some controversy around it. So, but it's not a question, so I will wait till that moment to do that. So moving on to the next section. Yep.
Okay. And before I move on, I thank you to our finance director. I have an answer to Councilmember Ding's question about the Housing Trust Fund. Is currently has a $2.5 million in that account balance.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Director.
Okay, for our third goal was economic development and financial stability. So we've focused a lot on both financial stewardship and budget management within the city, which is a key thing. You'll hear more about that in the next item from our finance director, so I'm not going to go too much into this, but that is a key priority for the council that we heard. Explore grant opportunities and also identifying other funding, so continuing to look for those opportunities out there to reduce the impact on our general fund. So that's going to be a key strategy for us this coming year. Strategically implementing the sales tax measure, so the communities supported the city in this past year and approving Measure T. So making sure that we're implementing that very strategically, and how do we make sure that we add value to the community and resources to the community as we move forward. Identify ways to support our local businesses and diversify our business sector. We've been working with the Chamber of Commerce. We do have an agreement with the Chamber of Commerce to provide a lot of services for us in this area. I have met with Mark, who's here, thank you for being here, from the Chamber of Commerce to look at strategies on how to accomplish these. So we've identified some work items that we're going to do to make sure that we can move these items forward, and we can report on that at a later date. And then initiate steps for a comprehensive Plaza Corridor Master Plan. This was kind of separate before, as kind of standalone before. This is one of the changes we made, is to put this into economic development. The point is that entire corridor has value to the community, both from a economic development standpoint, but also from a community asset standpoint. So treating that as how do we look at that comprehensively, so we can make sure that it is a driver for our community, both in quality of life, but also economic benefit.
Excuse me, already. Do we have any other questions of this section? So we can move on.
Sonoma Valley unification and annexation. So this past year has been, we've worked on a number of ways to incorporate the valley into what we do here in the city. One example, as we mentioned during the goal setting, was changing our board and commission makeups to make sure that we have 2 representation outside the city limits. We're also, obviously, our homeless services and working with the county on a number of emergency services. So we're going to continue that and look for other ways we could do that, working with a new supervisor on ideas and priorities that she has as well, to make sure we incorporate those in what we do. The disaster preparedness is critical. We are a region, our valley we're part of the valley, so we're going to continue that and really ramp up our regional approach to disaster preparedness. As you just heard, the fire maps have been released from CAL FIRE. We have to analyze and report and approve how we're going to deal within the city limits those fire maps, but we are part of the county, and the rest of the valley has been impacted, and those maps have increased the impact to the valley as well. So we'll be working with Sonoma Valley Fire along with the city to make sure that we do that regionally. As mentioned before, coordinate with the county supervisor on different ways we can look at unification annexation. Evaluate shared service opportunities, and then evaluate the valley-wide EFID, that's Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, and that's something that we've talked a little bit about here at the council. I will be bringing back an item to explain more about what that is, how we can participate moving forward with the county over the next couple months. So.
Do we have any questions on this section, on this goal? All right, moving to, I think we're at our final one.
Final one.
Final,
yeah.
but last but not least.
Not least, yeah, climate mitigation adaptation. So the Climate Commission did a lot of work last year in creating climate strategies. The council then adopted those strategies. So we have those that are all online. If you're interested in what those strategies are, please look on our website. That whole report is there. That committee will be looking at an action plan this year to determine what they want to accomplish coming up to try to align with their strategies, but also with the goals that are identified here. So we'll be looking to see what comes out of that group and then presenting that back to you. Developing green infrastructure policies and initiatives. So again, these are things that have been talked about for incorporation into the general plan, but also just things that we as a community are looking at doing in terms of how we manage our water, our LID programs, our water conservation, all those things, looking for grants to implement these things. So our tree policies and plantings, just met with PRO's chair this morning, and we are going to be bringing forward to you some tree lists coming up soon, and more work on that in terms of our updated tree policy. So all that's being worked on, but we have more to do with policies, but also getting trees in the ground. So that's a goal for us this year. Identifying and prioritizing needs for our vulnerable populations based on climate impacts and fires, floods, pandemics, and everything else can happen with us.
Extreme events.
Thank you. Extreme events. Evaluation of the climate coordinator position. So this is a position we had that was temporary part-time when I first started here. We don't have that position currently anymore. So we're looking at that and how to fulfill that role either through consultants or bringing somebody on board based on the budget. I will have that conversation with the budget process as we move forward in July to make sure that to see how that fits and works with other priorities as we move forward. And then to prioritize our fire flood resilient measures to address extreme events.
And do we have any questions from the council on? All right. Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Is the climate coordinator position, is that a mandated position?
It is not. It's a position that if we want to address the goals listed here and other the Climate Commission, the resources we have are limited to be able to pull that off. So again, I'd have to find a resource one way or the other, either through a staff position or through a consultant to help manage that, and that's the analysis I need to do.
All right, now we will open it up for public comment on all of these items. So I don't know, maybe what we'll do, good, we'll put it here, and then if someone's speaking to a certain item, we'll bring those slides up. Anybody like to make a comment?
Hello, Mayor Farrar-Rivas and council members. Thank you. My name is Cedra Nathan. First, I want to recognize there's many Valley of the Moon Garden Club board members here and members and just a whole slew of other people that have been active on supporting green-blue infrastructure, connectivity, and green links for the past 16 months that have helped contribute to that. And so I just want to recognize all those people in case they all don't get a chance to come up here and talk, as well as city staff people who've helped work on that. And so I just want to thank all those people, as well as you all, because you also have contributed to that in comments through the last 16 months. So thank you, thank everyone, really. It's been fantastic working on all that. The other thing I want to talk about is that with regard to the goals, there's a lot of really great goals also, so I'm really pleased. So let me just also preface it by saying that. But with regard to the Green Links goal in particular, have you all seen Sesame Street? And you know how there's one of these is not like the others. When I look at the goals up there, I see a lot of directive words like evaluate, prioritize, develop. But the consideration of establishment, that is very much unlike the other words. And so I do recognize what you're saying about looking at in terms of the general plan, but you're able to do that, you're able to have simultaneous action with some of those climate goals or some of those parks and recreation goals and still move forward on the general plan. And I think we can do that with Green Links as well. And in particular, I'm going to reference what we just did with mapping and how maps are so important to make decisions, especially super easy, fast decisions. And so we could do that by maps telling a story. And same thing with Green Links. So I've got a map. We've walked this entire city. We've walked it with professionals. We've walked it with Dr. Fang, who did the micro-mobility studies for ATP. And so we've got this map that we've hand-drawn. It needs to be validated. And these are the missing links. We just need a GIS map to help us understand for the general plan what's missing, to attract investment, to have people help us give money to the city to do this.
Thank you, Cedra.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, everybody will have 2 minutes.
Hi again, Tom Conlon here.
Hello, Tom.
So, long list of goals, and good luck with them. I want to mark that the city manager used the phrase, these goals drive resources and drive our budget. And there's a fuzziness there that I'm hoping we will improve the understanding of the nexus between especially our Climate Action Commission and the goals that we have, the plan we have, the strategies that we have, the plan we're going to be developing this year. I do hope that we might get a chance to meet with our new finance director and try to get into like what are we already spending in our budget on climate that we can take advantage of, be proud of, make sure the public understands what we're doing, and where might there be opportunities to improve that. Mayor Gurney asked a great question, is the sustainability coordinator position critical? We don't really know right now if we don't know how that position is going to be actually implementing our action plan. Briefly, I met with the supervisor, District 1 supervisor, recently. Although she's not been able to make any public comments yet about the evacuation analysis report that's been done by the private members of the community, she assures me that Permit Sonoma is well aware of it, and I know that at that public meeting, the proponents that got that report done specifically said the city of Sonoma is a shadow evacuation district that's not currently fully engaged in their modeling. They assume you guys will evacuate along the same timeline that the rest of the county will, but that's not fully understood in the model. So there's an encouragement to perhaps add on to that study, and that's something the city may want to be thinking about this year as part of this plan. Finally, I have some questions about I sent an email with Director Lowe of the SCTA and staff about the speed tables. Haven't yet heard back exactly on the change in scope to the cross-town bicycle proposal. That's actually is going out to bid or has already been being in active design right now. So I'd like to just understand what's going on there. And good luck with the IFT.
Sorry
Thank
about
you.
that. Thank you. All right. Hello.
Good evening, Caitlin Cornwall, Sonoma Ecology Center. So, the Ecology Center is very much a fan of this Green Links concept, and I just wanted to give a couple specifics. It does seem like there's something really tangible and pretty easy to do in the next year that is not even related to policy, that would really move the whole conversation forward, which is kind of along the lines of what Cedra just said, of just making digital GIS maps from all of the amazing data that she and many others have put together. And I was talking to my colleagues at the Ecology Center about this today. It would probably be a day, maybe 2 days, of one of our staff persons' time to sit with Cedra and just make a map that city staff could use and could overlay everything else that the city uses for its planning, and just have a workable starter map. And it could be like the draft Green Links map for the city. If that's something that you'd be interested in, we'd love to work with you on it.
Thank you.
Good evening. Raj Iyer. I'm the coordinator for the Save St. Francis Wetland Preserve and Open Space Group. I'd like to first begin by complimenting the Planning Commission for having unanimously endorsed the Green Links initiative, and I thank you for putting it on the agenda. I'd like to reiterate Cedra and Caitlin's comments regarding the critical importance of the Green Links initiative. In other words, it should not be an exercise in greenwashing. It will really remove any false dichotomies between economic vitality, climate resiliency, and improving the overall quality of life in our small town. In particular, I'd like to reiterate for your attention the importance of St. Francis Wetland Preserve, which is a 5-acre vernal pool mitigation area right in the middle of our city, and which could be a vital asset in improving the overall quality of the Green Links program. It happens to be quite proximate to the Plaza corridor that is being proposed, and it could be a vital asset in linking a number of trails and open spaces in the adjacent areas to businesses not only located on the plaza, but a number of ancillary businesses in the western side of the town as well. And again, I'd like to thank you for putting this on the agenda, and I hope that in future meetings and future discussions, the importance of removing what we think is a legacy error in that the preserve has been mistakenly for the last 30 years, roughly, been zoned residential, whereas it is really a mitigation area that was formed in 1997 through a multi-party agreement to which the City of Sonoma was party, along with CDFW, the Army Corps, and the two developers who were required to set that reserve aside in lieu for developing two adjacent residential subdivisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eileen Roach. I'm here with the Valley of the Moon Garden Club in support of Green Links. I'm very happy to see this as part of the plan. I understand the reasoning for the vague language. However, I would just like to argue that embracing Green Links and the green-blue infrastructure actually touches on all 5 of these things. So working from the bottom, climate mitigation, kind of obvious, but if we're looking at connecting our city through Green Links, we're talking about getting more people on bikes, getting more people biking, getting them off the road. Unification, we're unifying neighborhoods, we're helping connect them. Economic development, we're connecting those neighborhoods to economic corridors. We're bringing the Springs to the Plaza. We're bringing the West Side to the Plaza and vice versa. Again, ideally without having to get in a car. And then Parks and Recs, I mean, that's how it was filed. But housing as well, we're talking about identifying, mapping, identifying lots that would be good for development, and then thinking about how do we connect those communities to the rest of the city. Again, ideally bikeable and walkable. So, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Do we have other comments from the public?
Thank you, Mayor Rivas Farrar. I wasn't able to attend the meeting on the 30th, but I just wanted to make a pitch for in support of the goal of diversifying Sonoma's business sector as well as the goal of climate adaptation, and they sort of go hand in hand, especially in the face of climate change. I think it's important we look at other industries other than wine. I'm not at the exclusion of wine, but I heard a statistic recently that wine production, it might have been in the Napa Valley, was down like 23% last year over the year before. And one that might have had to do with climate, but it also has to do with, I think, the fact that younger people are not choosing to drink wine, perhaps as much as our generation. So I think, so it's important to look at other industries, and I'm just sort of envisioning what Sonoma could morph into other industries, and perhaps other agricultural industries like regenerative farming becoming known for that, and known for perhaps farm-to-table destination, and maybe then we could begin to attract families. And I think the other part of this that is worrisome to me is Sonoma already is, but becoming more a monoculture, and it just frightens me that schools keep closing, and that we really need to expand our economic base and to try to mitigate that and attract younger families to come into town. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other public comments? We do. Oh, we don't.
Good evening. Joanna Kemper. Hello, Council and staff. I'm here to support the position for the Parks and Recreation Director. I am so pleased to see it up here, and it almost seems like on 9/1 when you're talking about your goals, you started out by saying that you have a plan for a dedicated recreation and parks department. And here you are, you've already got that on the agenda on 9.5 of having this actual position done. So I'm thrilled.
And that actually will come up later in the agenda.
Yes.
So,
yes, yeah.
okay.
So that's great.
So, we're good, thank you.
So I just wanted to comment on. So we're not there yet.
We're not there yet. So
Okay.
anything in regards to the goals, but not in regards to that
Okay.
piece of the agenda.
So in the goals, you have the plan for a Parks Department, and it seemed to me just a small tweak would be on 9.5 when you do the description for that director position. You say.
So once again, we can't take comments on that now. We have to wait till we're at 9.5.
But this is on 9.1, the goal. So,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
so I can do it all at the same time. That's fine.
Okay.
I'll do it at the same time.
We understand it's linked and confusing, but when it comes specifically to the director, we need to wait to that agenda item. I'm sorry. Do we have any other comments? All right, so we're going to take it back to the council for comments and discussion. Do we have any members of our council? Are you ready?
Yes.
Councilmember
Yeah.
Ding?
Just because we are so familiar with these kind of goals, we spend the whole day, discuss. We can share a lot of things in commons. We are. I'm so proud. And you can see our financial resources with the city is limited. It's very little. But according to our council goals, we can see we have a lot of the tasks we have been covered, and also we want to move forward. And again, our resource is a limit, but if we rely on our community, relying on our the knowledge, experience, our intelligence, and we can do a lot of things. For example, although an affordable housing fund just only 2.5, but we try work hard to renew or prepare and favorable and a policy to encourage to build more affordable housing. And we don't spend any money, but we have the great policy to help and to support the community. Another example is in the green links. We city don't spend any additional money, but we just encourage our community and link the greens get together. Not only in the greens trees and together, also we bring our all community together and the people and share and then the same vision. And that is wonderful. I'm so proud of our city and the council made this kind of decision. Thank you.
Other comments?
Ron.
Vice Mayor Vaughn.
I too believe we have a very exciting list, a long list, and I'm very optimistic that our city manager's going to be able to pull it off. So thank you. Couple just real quick comments. Under the development of the plaza maintenance plan, I'm not known for wordsmithing, but I would love to change the word maintenance to sustainability. That just kind of brings it up to a little higher level of what I call urgency, or a little bit more comprehensive than just mowing and blowing. So that's just a comment on that. And then I know we've talked in the past, and it's very optimistic, but we had talked about the idea of creating an outdoor venue for a possibility of people like Transcendence and or Jazz Fest. And I don't know, again, if this is something that it will be covered under one of these sub-points, but I don't want to lose that, what I would call very high aspirational goal. And the last one would be, again, maybe a sub-point under housing. It's a broader thing, but my hope is that as we continue to work on the update of the general plan, that that our goal is to truly come up with a document that reflects the will of the community. And I know that that's what we're putting forth that effort. And I lied. I had one other comment. I'm hoping that with all these bullet points that we might be able to get some feedback from staff, maybe by June, with some sort of, not a definitive action plan, but knowing that you're going to be meeting with various commissions and that they're going to be putting forth some sort of strategy on how to move some of these bullet points forward. I would love to have that be agendized at some point that you can fit it in. And that's it.
Councilwoman Lowe.
Thank you. Many of the things listed here and many of the comments we've received via email and through public comment we're going to be able to do because we passed Measure T. And many of us worked very hard on that. And I just wanted to go back to the actual polling that we did on this to tell you what the public thinks is the most important things. Although we didn't prioritize things, but I think it's very important that we remember that we did this based on what the public really wants to see. And the number one thing that they're most concerned about is safety. And that's why when we did the communications that we did on the measure, we talked a lot about fire, and which of course now we have a new fire map that we'll have to consider, and emergency services, and especially hospital and safety services. So I just want to make sure that we're cognizant of, we did this because we were asked by the public to raise more money to take care of the things that they care about. And that was number one. And we asked them a lot about recreation and so forth, housing and streets and so forth. But number one thing was emergency response times, maintaining public safety and emergency response, safe evacuation routes, affordable housing programs, improving traffic safety for pedestrians, maintaining streets and sidewalks and potholes and things. Further down the list were some of the recreation things that we talked about tonight. And as much as we know that these are important and we're going to do them and they're in our goals, I just want to say out loud that the public put their faith and trust in us, that we use our resources, our limited resources, and that we focus on the things that they are intensely concerned about. And so my comments today will be with that in mind. Thank you.
Councilmember Gurney.
Yeah, thank you. I just, I look at these, and there was a lot of the communications that the city received dealt with wordsmithing and so forth. And 2 years ago, when we did our first goal setting as this council, it was an opportunity for us to start formulating some kind of a future from our perspective. And this last goal setting was even more valuable because it reaffirmed some things. Some things dropped off the list as not priorities. But more important, very strong consensus in terms of what this plan should look like. And I use the word plan. It's not a good word. This is, as far as I'm concerned, while it deals with goals specifically, it's a work plan for the city manager. And one of the things that we do as council members is we meet with the manager regularly. Some of these things might fall into a bigger priority for some of us than others. And we have conversations regularly, making sure that we're making progress. They're not going to happen overnight, obviously, and some of these are multi-year goals, but we're moving in the right direction. And the thing I really want to say is that I'm looking at the audience and the interest of the people here in the blue-green thingy, okay? But my point is you're passionate about it. You're not going to let us forget about it. And so we just need to keep working together, and we will make those incremental steps that are going to allow us to turn around, take a look, and say, wow, look what we accomplished. Okay? So don't, please don't walk out of here feeling that we're not listening. Thank you.
Other comments? Councilmember Wellander? Well, I'm going to make one last. So in the light of trying to come to some kind of compromise where people feel as if maintaining some vagaries around language, I really did appreciate Eileen Roach and all of the comments that she made about talking about green links. And what I really think of as this idea of green links to me is one element of a bigger concept of the sustainability and wellness of Sonoma for generations to come. And it's one element, and climate is a big element of it. Wellness, health, safety, certainly all of the hardening, whether it's fire, flood, earthquake that we need to do in regards to making sure that we are really consciously able to look at that we feel that we're as prepared as possible for extreme events, because we know they're going to happen. And we've been really fortunate over the last several years that we have not had extreme events, but those are they're going to happen. And so I think that is a priority. While that is happening, I really believe that looking at the idea of mobility and connector, I really see that for me, and I know I'm talking as economic wellness and climate as well too, is that those are elements that while you are mitigating, you are also adapting. And that this really has the potential of addressing a significant amount of economic issues too, because one of the things I love about the connectors is I like the idea that you're getting people, they come to the plaza, but then they also go to other parts of the city. And I think it could potentially drive more business to the west side because you have paths that would go there. And so what that does to help and support those businesses and the ability to create an art, temporary art shows throughout the city and having the ways to get to all of those temporary art shows. So in that light, and I won't go on and on because all of you know I could probably go on and on about this, but I would say that maybe what we could do instead of just is considering the establishment of, it does feel a little bit like, well, we're going to think about whether or not we're going to consider and establish. It does feel like it's a little bit, nebulous. But I think we could say, we could look at the one thing in regards to mapping, and I think that there could be community support for doing that mapping so that would, whether from a financial point of view or partner organizations that we are partnering with that could do that. So, my sense would be to say assess and describe the initial elements for a potential green links overlay, complete mapping of existing links, and identify connection challenges. And so that still gives us, there is an actual what we would do and how, what's a very first step, and then it sets us up for the general plan. So as we're looking at the elements in the general plan, we have a little bit of a baseline to know as whether or not this is something that is possible to do, and how possible or how much work needs to happen around it. And I do think we do have other things in there, and the whole idea of a sustainable plaza and the corridor plan, that also needs to be in the general plan too, and supported by that and a specific plan. But so that there is some element of work that people are able to do, so that then we can assess it in the general plan. That's my comment.
If I could just push back on that a little bit. I think there's plenty of other bullet points throughout this document that are equally vague. Explore ideas to generate funding. I mean, explore ideas is about as vague as 2 words can get. And I think that if we start down this road, you know, there are other things, and as I said, I'm very concerned about what's foremost in the mind of the people of Sonoma that we surveyed. You know, then we're going to be putting the flesh on the bones of many of these things that are on here. And I think that Councilmember Gurney said it very well, is that, you know, there is an activist group that's going to make sure we keep this going. There are parts of this plan that there are no activist groups assigned to, and it's on us to do this work because they need this stuff, and they don't have, you know, a group of people or a club to come and talk to us about it. And it's that's why I referred back to the poll, because you get to talk to people who don't come to the meeting. You get to talk to people who are here every single day and hear what's their priorities, because there's a lot of people who just don't come to this room and don't talk to us about that. And I feel equally responsible for taking care of their needs as I feel for the people that are here tonight, equally. So I don't want to go down that path of wordsmithing one of the bullets and not, you know, I think as we develop this plan, those bullets will be flushed out. And I think talking about a map will be maybe one of the things that we'll have on our agenda at some point, and maybe we'll have a decision to make as to who's going to do the map at that point. But I don't want to put so much into that one bullet, and we haven't really done the same thing for some of the other things on here, which I think are as important and are high priorities. So that's where I'm at with it.
Any other comments?
I was just going to say, following up on Ms. Lowe's comments, is, you know, I want the city manager to have the flexibility to develop the work programs around these goals as necessary with the resources that he has, and of course he needs to explain that to us. I want to stay at the policy level. I don't want to get into the operational and wordsmithing of things. That's not our role. And I think we've got an excellent list of goals. We're not going to accomplish them all, I accept that. And but we'll work our way through them and accomplish what we can for all the right reasons.
Councilmember Wellander.
Just a couple of questions to staff. I know that this whole topic of green-blue has been batted around for quite a few weeks, and I know there was some resistance to kind of folding it in or creating an overlay for that. I never quite understood why there was resistance, but I guess my question is, with the way that it's written right now, consideration, is that something that if we continue to get community support for that can bubble back up to something that we can take some more meaningful discussions about how we can at least move this forward in some vein? Or I guess I just need a little bit of clarity, because what I heard this evening was that we have one of our community partners who's willing to work with us to create what's seemingly, in the eyes of some, a very valuable map. Doesn't sound very controversial to me. Doesn't sound like it's very demanding. But at the same time, I know that there were words expressed in the past that I just wanted to once again hear. I like the fact that it's on here. I like that it's here. I also covet what I would call involvement and support from our community, that we are in an engaged community, and that there are a number of voices that have come out and said, hey, this is important. So any thoughts on that?
Sure. Yeah, I could talk to that. I think the concept of green links is something that we're well aware of. We continue to have those conversations in here. My job is to figure out how to help identify a process and pathway that's transparent, open, and follows the process. The reason it's written this way, obviously, is that there's a process we're going through with the general plan. There's a number of elements that are going to be coming out shortly. Narrative elements that are going to explain how the council wants to envision the future of Sonoma and which ways in terms of connectivity and the various elements that Green Links promotes. That language will be in there. There will be a number of maps that are produced that identify areas of where we have known connectivity and where we don't. All those maps are going to be produced. So I guess the request is that we do get the public to participate in that process to make sure that the language is there that will help provide that vision and goal for the future. The maps that then can be used as base for some of the maps that we're talking about now, and leverage those working with our community partners. But then once that general plan is adopted and council says this is a goal, this is what we want to see, the next step typically is a master plan or a specific plan that identifies, okay, here's a gap, here's the strategy and how we do it, here's the funding plan to do that. But that's a level of detail that comes next after that, so which is really important. A lot of the plans that have been referenced have done that, and cities have done that, and it's really a valuable tool to have. I'm just want to make sure we don't lose sight of the general plan, getting that across the finish line with the community input, because there's a lot more than just this in the general plan. It's public safety, it's extreme weather events, it's connectivity, it's health, it's access to food, all these different things that we have to make sure we address in that plan, and we got to do that here in this next few months so we can start the EIR process. So long-winded answer to say that I want to make sure everyone sees the next elements that come out, the draft versions of the general plan that have the narratives, have the maps, review that, and then identify where do we go from there, what's missing, how can we leverage those for other initiatives that we want to move forward. But hopefully that launches the consideration of this for you to adopt, that we can then move into the next level.
I believe my long-winded question deserved a long-winded answer, so thank you.
Sorry, yeah. And again, I'm happy to talk with anybody about the process just to make sure that we're not losing sight of it. But again, once we get the data and the documents from the consultant, then we'll have something to review, wordsmith, and take through the next process.
I suggest, this kind of format is wonderful. If we year by year, then continuously using this in the format, and we can increase our awareness and community and support, and then each year we can make a comparison, and then seeing, and if a certain item and always showing on this bulletin, then it means they need some more support, more in the financial resource, and then we can arrange, because this is a short-term strategy, 1 year or 2 years, yet, and then later we can develop 5 years and 10 years as well.
And then we'll close this discussion, we'll move forward, but I would like to say that certainly my top priority is climate in regards to, and of course I have a housing and equity priority too. They're all equal in my mind because they're integrated and you can't separate them out, but certainly that, hardening for all the work we need to do for extreme events and for the safety of people is the utmost of concern with me, and I have conversations with people about that all the time, and the city manager. I will just say, I think that we want, as much as I agree that there's the voices that aren't heard, I think that it is very important when you have an engaged community that is participating in the process, is that you listen to them. And I think that in my mind, that there's a compromise here that for whatever reason I haven't been able to find what's the area between that I've been working on for weeks that is, both fits into the process, but also rewards the people that have been doing this work, that is about a vision that I think could be a very, very positive vision in the long run for Sonoma and for the businesses here and for our economic development. So I will leave it here. I don't think that we can, no need to, what do you call that? I won't say that about horses because I like them too much. All right, so we will move on. And so at this point, I think what we're looking for is a motion to adopt these goals and priorities.
I would like to make a motion to adopt a resolution ratifying 2025 the city council goals as presented by the city manager David Gui.
Second.
Our city clerk, would you please take the roll call?
Councilmember Gurney,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellander,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Mayor Farrar-Rivas.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Madam Mayor? Yes. I'd like to make another motion.
Yes. Oh, yes, we may. 5-minute bathroom break. 5 minutes, because we have a lot ahead of us. going to bring this meeting back to order. Yeah. Yeah, so it's very good that Sandra brought that point up, yeah. All right. Oh, I should have gotten rid of this. Okay, that's right, we'll go. Okay, get back on tension. You're welcome. For the break? Oh, yeah, I'm glad. I wouldn't want you to, have an accident or anything. On the agenda, 9.2. I actually have a request. I don't know if it's too late to do this. I think that there's a number of people here that want to make comments in regards to our Park and Rec position. City Manager Guin, I want to make sure that if we were to move the Park and Rec up here, because I know there's people here that want to make, I believe are waiting for that, and it is currently the last item on our agenda. Can we, is there any reason in your mind that is there discussions we have to have before we move that up? I know the budget may have something to do with it, but.
Yeah, it would be at the discretion of the council. There is information, I did order them that way, so you had information on the budget prior to having that conversation on the director position. Although you've had time to review the packet, you've seen the packet, I think you know kind of what's in there. If you feel comfortable moving that forward, I support that. Otherwise,
I know. If the rest of the council is comfortable moving that forward, because they have the information that they need to make that decision, then we will do that. So what we're going to do is I will take a vote. Could I have a motion to move? We're talking about 9.5, and that now becomes.
I move that we move 9.5 up to 9.2 and then subsequently renumber the others.
I second.
City Clerk Barr, could you take a vote roll call?
Councilmember
Yes.
Gurney? Vice Mayor Wellander?
Yes.
Councilmember Dean?
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Farrar-Rivas?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
All right.
All right. Introduce 9.5, a resolution approving a new job classification and salary range for a Parks and Recreation Director. So I'm going to turn this over once again to our City Manager, David Guin.
great, thank you. And I'm excited to be here at this point talking about this. I don't have a PowerPoint, so I'll try to keep this to very succinct. This is a position that I'm recommending that we add to the city's job classification. It would be a Parks and Rec Director, Recreation and Director. By doing this, establishing this position, it's the first step in establishing a Parks and Rec department. And in the staff report, I identify ways on how that's going to look in this organization. Before I get there, though, I want to just make sure and acknowledge the fact that this did start before me. This started before I got here in 2021. The city established a Parks and Rec task force, and that was led by members in the audience that I think you're going to hear tonight. So thank you for that work. Also, Catalyst Fund played a role in this as well to fund a study that was done for the city to evaluate. So we were able to take that information from that task force and conversations with them, with the work they did from the Catalyst report, looking at the organization, looking at what the council wants to accomplish, looking at what the goals of the council are to come up with this approach to creating this Parks and Rec department. The Parks and Rec department would be fairly have a purview of a number of things. Parks, obviously, in terms of our parks, how they are maintained. Our parks operations staff would report to that position. They would be in charge of overseeing all the planning, new parks, updates to parks, the CIP, developing those CIP programs to work with Public Works for implementation. It would oversee the cemeteries. So we have a cemetery manager that runs the enterprise of the cemeteries, but they would oversee that to make sure that there's coordination amongst our parks, memorial benches, memorial programs, and everything else. We would be looking at our events, all of our special events, and would be fall under there. All of the work with our community partners that provide our recreation programs. We have a number of community partners that are doing recreation programs, a number of contracts, agreements that are in place, having one person responsible for all those, making sure that they have what they need, the support they need, and bringing recommendations to me and to ultimately to the City Council on additional funding needs. It would also take, they would be responsible for the staff liaison to two boards and commissions. So one is the pros. They would be the lead person for pros to make sure that they're bringing that expertise to that committee. And then also our arts commission. So the arts programs would be under this umbrella as well. In the staff report, I listed a few things that they would do, responsible for. I did receive some comments on this one in terms of calling out the Sonoma Overlook Trail and not Montini Preserve and others. I understand that, and that was an oversight on my part. The staff report is just an example of things that they would be working on. The actual job description doesn't go into that level of detail and doesn't include that language, and that's what you're approving tonight is just the job description and the salary range. So, but with that said, I did receive that feedback. Obviously, they would be overseeing all open space areas, working with our organizations to make sure that they're maintained in an appropriate way. So it's got a fairly large purview. Obviously, it is the department would be created based on existing staffing that we have in place with this one oversight and director. This would be the exec team would essentially be our community development director, finance director, the parks director, and the public works director to help pull all the resources together in the city. As part of creating this position, we did look at comparable cities in terms of the salary. We also looked internally to look at what our internal structure is to make sure there's parity amongst our organization. So we did align it with our internal level of positions. So that would be the maximum of $15,538 per month would be the maximum salary level. Obviously, that would be evaluated along with all other positions when we do salary reviews and salary studies to make sure that there's parity amongst all staff. So essentially, the way that we're able to do this is based on the fact that we do have we have looked at our budget. You're going to hear the next item, which is our budget update, which shows that we have brought our deficit down. We do feel like we have a pretty good path forward in terms of how we're moving forward with other reductions, investments that we've made for ongoing structural integrity of our finances. In addition to the community supporting Measure T, which will generate additional funds that will allow us to not only have this position, but to identify other critical needs that the community wants in terms of public safety, making sure that we have the funds to support our fire and police contracts, but also to be able at the same time enhance quality of life in areas like our parks and recreation programs. So that is the value that we want to bring to the community and do that with this position. So with that said, I'm going to stop there, and I'm happy to answer any questions and follow up on any other things that come up from the public as needed.
Do we have any questions from the council? All right, and now we will move forward to public comment.
Karen Collins, 275 France Street. Mayor Rivas, Vice Mayor Wellander, council members, and city staff. What I'd like to do first is, I can't tell you how happy I am to be here talking about this. And I'd like to thank several people that have been involved for the last about 4 or 5 years. Thank you, City Manager Guin. Thank you, city staff, particularly Sarah Tracy, who worked with us. The members of the Park and Rec Task Force, the former Park and Rec Task Force, and I'm here as the co-chair of the former task force along with my co-chair Steve Page. Catalyst Fund, as David mentioned, was very generous. Through Catalyst Fund, we were able to fund a study looking at how 8 other cities about our size and about our demographics handled their park and rec their park and rec programs. There were many different many different scenarios. Some handled them all internally. Some had public-private partnerships like we did. So we were able to take a look at those, and there are a lot of ideas sitting there for us when we get a department going. We were appointed by City Council in 2020 to take a look at what we had in the valley and assess what we had. What were our programs? And to take a look, we didn't have any conceived, no determination of how this would come out, but our task was to take a look at what we had, take a look at what we didn't have, assess the public in terms of what they wanted, and then bring our recommendations to City Council to see, how you wanted to proceed. We did work at this for a little over 2 years, and we were the interim city manager determined at that time not to move ahead, so we did collapse the task force, but we maintained our interest. Two things that we did, I think, that could be very helpful in the formation of a department and were I mentioned the report that was funded.
I'm gonna give you a little more time because you're explaining the process.
Okay.
So just if you another minute. So
yeah,
okay.
no, the two reports out there. One that the city worked on, and the one that Catalyst Fund did. And with that, I think looking at the Potrero study, and with the task force, there's a lot of information for a new department. So I just want to thank you for considering it, and Steve, the others, if there's any way we can be helpful as you move forward, we would be happy to. Thank you.
Good evening, Steve Page. I won't list all the names. I will thank all the same people at Karen that made this possible. I wholeheartedly endorse the idea of the department, of the new director. The one comment I want to make is to make sure in the job description that we broaden the scope to reflect what I think really the singular work product that we had. There are lots of people who consider themselves Sonomans who do not live in the city limits, who take advantage of all the city park and resources. Maybe we shouldn't admit it. There are lots of resources outside the city limits that people in the city take advantage of. And one of the things that I think we were able to produce with the tremendous help from Sarah Tracy was a database that is the beginning of, I think, a really wonderful resource that people can take advantage of, that lists the different organizations, the different resources, the locations. We got it to a certain point where we sort of ran out of support and resources. But I think it is a tool that we hope that the new director will take full advantage of, flesh it out, develop it, update it, and then most importantly, make sure that people are aware of it, because I think it's a small, undeveloped jewel, but for people who live in the valley, for people who are visiting the valley that want to know what there is to do here in the way of parks, recreation, outdoor activities, it's a really good tool, and it's something that we hope will be a key part of what the new director will take advantage of. And thank you again, and urge your support. Thanks.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you. Go to. So I was actually going to comment on another piece of the program, but anyway, let's move on to the park. So yes, I'm very much in favor of this position. As Steve talked about, I was a member of this task force and worked on that database. So discovered all the enormous opportunities there are in town with the different nonprofit organizations that are out there, mostly run by volunteers. And so it will be very important for this new director to be available to work with those people. And you wrote that out in your description of the parks, when you talked about the need to strengthen and support our nonprofits in the valley and all the things that support our parks and recreation. So that's what I would encourage, as Steve has done too, and for the people that surround our city and provide lots of opportunity, and as well as use our programs. So that with the Vintage House and the community center and all the other things that you guys have been so helpful to support over these years, Sebastiani, etc. So we're all for it. It'd be great. And yes, we would love it if you said, I was the Overlook chairperson for 8 years. So we'd love it if you said that when you said, of course, you put Sonoma Overlook Trail in as an example, you might just say, example Overlook Trail. Because yes, all the Montini Trails, big open space. So that would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi there. Cedra Nathan, living in the city as well. I just want to add one element that I think is really critically important about parks and open space. So before I was talking about something else, but this is about health and equity in terms of parks and open space. I was just at a conference at Sonoma State University, and we had Dr. Mary Gnomes speak about the physical health benefits from being in green space, the mental and social well-being and spiritual well-being and connectedness, but at a biological level. So she does research on this and was looking at the impact in terms of diabetes, cancer, cortisol levels. And this is really important for our community members throughout the valley, actually, in terms of access. And I was thinking about that in terms of the job description. And because the state of the world today in terms of stress levels and some of the meetings that Caitlin has hosted at La Luz and the mental health and anxiety issues, that programs for mental health, physical well-being, and open spaces are really important. And we're seeing this across the country, people increasing access to open space for communities, vulnerable communities, that might be an element we consider with Parks, Rec, and open space, because we're seeing them in other communities. It'd be such a great asset for our community to make that available for members, that I just wanted to offer that as another added value of what we do so well already in Sonoma. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll try to be brief. Tom Collin again. I also rise in support of this director position tonight, and I just want to take the opportunity to thank the staff and the members of the community that really carried this over the line. And those of us who've been working in other areas for maybe even longer than this initiative has been percolating through the community, have to step back and say, what are we doing wrong that we haven't been able to achieve the same level of engagement with city government? And so I do hope and extend the offer to the members of the community and staff that we can, now that this one's gotten over the line, that we can redirect some of that energy toward the other goals that we have, in particular, as we look at that fire map, climate mitigation and adaptation. Thank you for your consideration.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Diana Sanson, and I'm a steering committee member and a grants chair of the Sonoma Valley Catalyst Fund, which, for those of you who don't know, it's a valley-focused philanthropic fund whose mission is to mobilize philanthropic support and innovative approaches to address urgent, emergent, and chronic challenges that no one Sonoma Valley donor or organization can solve alone. I know that's a mouthful. I'm here because if you all have, as you have heard, Catalyst funded a study back in 2021 that was in collaboration with the former City Park and Recs Task Force. We did this because we believed back then in the pandemic, and we still do, that it is time to reimagine how we can best leverage and coordinate services in the city and across the valley. The city should have a Parks and Recs department for several reasons. We have youth mental health crisis right now. I think you all are aware of that. And getting kids outside directly helps and improve mental health. That was just, as was just stated. There's also, as you all are probably aware, a growing mental health crisis in adults right now, given what's happening across our community. There are many, as you also have heard, many outdoor activities that are happening all across the valley. And many people do not know where to go to be able to access those. I was in a El Verano community feedback meeting a couple years ago, and the parents were saying, we don't know where to go, we know they're out there, please help us access them. This new department would be a centralizing resource that could also help identify gaps and remove barriers to access. Lastly, we found in the study that not only do most cities Sonoma size, let alone the size of our entire valley, have a Parks and Recs department, but these departments have a huge impact on getting their community outside and improving their overall health. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other comments on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, we will take it back to council for discussion and comment.
Yes.
Councilmember Ding.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I fully support this position. And also, I have been waiting for this day for a long time. You know, we just mentioned, we have a community, support and the task force and behind them, and also that is a huge community members. And at that time, and we don't have any professional staff to take care. It looks like not in a very balance. I still remember a member of the task force even involved in purchasing some software. How to use it and how to test it, how to return. These kind of things is not volunteers work. So right now, we have this kind of position. I'm so glad, and in this way, we can provide more, the service to our community, because community and the resources is unlimited. I think this is a very good start, and then definitely we need to carefully and screen all the candidates, make sure qualified, and also I want to suggest maybe some local one. They really love the Sonoma, and then in this way we can get together with the community and make fulfill this position in the future. Thank you.
Councilmember Lowe.
So, yes, obviously, I'm quite in favor of this, and I want to thank all of the people that did the legwork for all these years to get us to this point, as long as it took. But to that point, I want to say that I was going through what I do every Thursday is find something in my garage to throw away. It's Throwaway Thursdays. You might want to all adopt it. Anyway, I found something that was wrapped in a Sonoma Index Tribune newspaper from, I think it was 1987, because in it was the birth of the Curley triplets, who were the same age as my son. And it was the dissolution of the Recreation and Parks District of the Sonoma Valley was the article. I saved it. And I couldn't believe that I was looking at this thing. But at one point, there was, at least as, it's 1987, and, Mr. Page and I, we have some kids in that age group. And so there was something there, and it went away. And it couldn't be funded, and so forth. So I just wanted to bring that up, that I found that was just kind of ironic that I should find that paper. But, the other thing that I just wanted to highlight that's been brought up by so many people in this discussion and in others is that we talked about the whole valley. And one of our goals is also this annexation, unification, whatever it is. And this really fits into this as well. I don't think there's another city in Sonoma County that has a situation like ours, and the description of what happened at the El Verano school that we just listened to is a perfect example, where, we had two different little leagues. If you lived here, you lived there, and, which one should my kids go to and all of that. I'm hoping that through this program that this also nurtures the unifying valley that we all want, whether we actually draw a line and bring them in or we don't. I think this is something that will highlight the fact that we are all in this together and that we share resources, we share kids, we share goals, and I see this position as being very important in moving this forward. So, of course, I will be voting yes.
Well, I could load us all up into the Wayback Machine, but I'm not going to. This has been floating out there for so many years, it's unbelievable. But I guess it does speak to the fact that if we stick to it, we can make it happen, right? And so I can remember working on ancillary elements of this project, specifically with the task force, and prior to that, just with the police department and the community center time. So anyway, long in coming, congratulations for getting us here, and let's move forward.
Vice Mayor Wellander.
Just a couple quick questions. As I see it, we're creating, at least at the outset, a win-win in that we're not over-investing. We're starting off with a director. We are cannibalizing the Public Works Department in terms of taking some support staff to deal with it. And so even from a fiscal standpoint, it seems like we're not exposing ourselves to wishful thinking that we can't support. So I think that's a great approach, but I also am quite optimistic that this is going to be very successful, and it will be a real significant step moving us forward, and picking up on Sandra's comments about just unifying our valleys, which I totally support. So I'm sorry we didn't make Steve and Karen wait for longer, but I do support it.
Yeah, and certainly I support it. I think it's great, and it's an opening a door for many other things coming down the road. And the only other comment I have is when we do reach out, because I realize the language that we have described right now is not actual language that will go out when we have the final, language for looking for this. I do think it would be important because of that we are, a wildland urban interface, that within that language that we're looking for someone, and I understand that many of these services in regards to, addressing issues of extreme events, this is my new language. We've moved to from climate to extreme weather to extreme events, just so that we can make sure we can get the funding we need. But that there is some, that capability of coordinating. So understanding that that's not their sole responsibility, but it is their responsibility to coordinate with around extreme events with fire, police, all of the county organization. But so that that's just because I think it's a skill that is needed in today's world that not everybody has. So I think it's important, and whether they have it or not, that they are aware that it's something that they're going to have to educate themselves about. So I can call for a motion. Thank you.
I'd move to adopt a resolution for the new position of Parks and Rec Director.
Second.
And I think we can I will just call for all those that approve.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes. See, we can say it all together. Thank you. Yes. All right. Moving on. We're going to zoom right here. Yes. Yes. Right. Thank you. And thank you, Councilwoman Lowe, for all the work that you did on our Measure T. So moving on to 9.432, which is now 9.3. Thank you. A resolution adopting the City of Sonoma fraud policy. And Prop T, Ariel.
Yep.
Did I pronounce your last name correct?
Ariel.
Ariel. Okay,
Yep.
good. I almost got there. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good evening, Mayor Farrar-Rivas and council member. Tonight I present the fraud policy, to enhance the financial oversight, accountability, and public fund protection. This policy establishes a framework to prevent, detect, and address fraud in cities' operation, aligning with GFOA best practices and audit standards. The policy applies to all employees, elected officials, vendors, contractors. It also defines fraudulent activities and what needs to happen to report suspected fraud, which is through a confidential process. The reports can be made to the supervisor, city manager, or the finance director with a strong whistleblower protection in place. Fraud investigation will be led by the city manager with the involvement with law enforcement, external auditors, or legal counsel as needed depending on the case, fraud case. Human resources will handle cases related to employees' misconduct. With complex financial crimes, it may require an independent third-party investigation, and any confirmed fraud may result in termination, legal action, or financial restitution. This policy is needed to prevent fraud and to strengthen the internal controls, and which will also have mandated fraud awareness training and enforces segregation of duties, audit, and financial monitoring. This policy was brought to my attention when we completed the fiscal year 2021 audit, and it was brought forward by the auditors asking about this policy, which is why I'm bringing this policy here. And then I would also like to mention that we've never had a case of fraud, but this policy is needed for audit purposes, which is why I'm bringing it in front of you. With that, I am happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the council? No? And do we have anybody from the public that would like to make a comment on this? I realize fraud policies are the most exciting policies and discussions that we have, but I do want to say, because we're bringing it back to the council for comment and discussion, I just really appreciate this. It's very important to have these procedures and policies, because I have been in situations before where there was fraud and there was no policy, and then people are not really clear about what steps to take and what to do, and that can also open you up for other legal issues. So I really appreciate that. Any other comments or discussion in regards to our policy?
Just real quick. So this was prompted by our auditor who was looking at our 2021, and he just said, he asked if we had a fraud policy.
That is
it wasn't a
correct.
case that he saw something in
Right.
his document review.
Right, that's correct.
So we're purely being proactive, not reactive.
Right,
Okay,
that's
thank you.
correct.
Great clarification. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right, I will ask for a motion.
I move to approve the resolution adopting the city's fraud policy.
Yeah, ratifying that.
Second.
Oh, you're right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do it again. All those in favor? Aye. Very good. All right, moving along. Thank you very much. I think you're up again.
Yeah.
So now we're going to review the mid-year budget update report for fiscal year 2024-25 to provide an analysis of the City of Sonoma's financial position as of January 31st, 2025. I'm going to hand it over to Propti, right, versus you, David. Yes.
Right. So this presentation is for the budget update for fiscal year 24-25. And the agenda is we will look at general fund, and under enterprise fund, we'll talk about water and cemetery fund. And I would like to mention that all the reports ran for today's meeting for this presentation is as of January 31st. So the first 7 months of the fiscal year.
Yes, very good. We'll keep reminding folks of that.
Yes.
You tend to look at these numbers and think that it's
Mid-year.
half
Yeah,
mid-year,
it's
but
for
it's 7 months.
Mhm, that's correct. So here is the bar graph that shows the budget to actual for general fund, water fund, and cemetery fund. Total budgeted revenue for general fund is 24.3 million and budgeted expenditure is 27.2 million. The year-to-date actual as of January 2025 for the revenue is 12.3 million, which is 50% of the budget. And the year-to-date expenditure is 15.6 million, that is 57% of the budget. Similarly, for water fund, the revenue budgeted is 6.9 with year-to-date actuals of 4.4 million, that is 64%, and the expense budget is 6.8 million with year-to-date actuals of 2.7 million at 40%. And then for the cemetery fund, the adopted revenue is 0.4 million with year-to-date actuals of 0.1 million at 40%, and adopted expenses budget is 0.7 million with year-to-date actual of 0.3 million at 37%. Okay, so moving on to general fund revenue, the TOT, transient occupancy tax, we have received 2.6 million year to date with $6 million budget. The number listed here, the 2.6 million, is the collection through November of 2024, which is 43% of the budgeted amount. Since you all know that we now have hired HDL for our TOT collection, which is why the collection is only booked through November. We're still, we just received the payment for December and January through, it's not on the report, but we just received it last week. So, which is why it's November, if you have a question why it's only through November. And then we're anticipating the TOT to remain flat compared to the budget for this year. Property tax is, we've received 3.2 million with 5.5 million budget. We are expecting it to remain strong and project to come a little bit over higher than the budget. With sales tax, that includes Measure V, local tax, and public safety, we've received 2.7 million year-to-date actuals with total budget that was adopted of 6.8 million. Due to inflation and interest rate and then consumer being more cost conscious, we're seeing this little bit lower than anticipated. EMS ambulance billing, we've received 2.3 million as of January 31st compared to adopted budget of 2.3. And the reason, which is at the budget level right now, and for our finance committee discussion, I did reach out to the vendor and ask what was the reason. The reason was that there was a rate increase for this fiscal year, and the number of transportation was higher for fiscal year 2024. So they had more transportation for 2024, which is why we're seeing this jump. Fees and charges for services, we have received 0.8 million actual compared to budget of 1 million. And for the other revenues, because of the interest revenue that we're still seeing the strong return on the investment and reimbursement, these are expected higher than the budgeted amount. Okay.
So maybe just to summarize that last slide, everything is up except for and I'm up or even,
right?
Except for sales tax,
right?
Yeah.
Yep. On the general fund expenditure side, the total budget for the personnel cost is 5.4 million with actuals of 3 million, which is 56% of the budget. PERS UAL, it's paid every year at start of the fiscal year in July, so hence it is at the 100% level. Professional services are at 40% of the budgeted level. Similarly, for sheriff contract and Sonoma Valley Fire District contract, we're at 45% and 58% respectively. The operating cost is budgeted at 4.1 million with actuals of 3 million. That is 73% of the budget. The higher percentage is due to the higher utility costs due to the rising energy rates and fluctuations. And also in this operating cost, our insurance, property insurance is higher than what was budgeted. The actual number, the invoices that came through was higher, which is why, the percentage is higher in this area. Lastly, the transfers are at 25%, and these are the manual journal entries we do at year end, which is why you only see 25% of the transfers being done, but this will, we will book all the transfers, approved transfers at year end. Okay. Moving along to enterprise funds, which consists of water and cemetery. So, for water fund, the revenue received compared to budget is 64%, and for the expense side, we're at 40% of the actual expense of 2.7 million. And then for the cemetery fund, which actually includes both cemetery operation and cemetery endowment, and I've combined those in this graph. The total revenue budgeted is 0.36 million with actuals of 1.4 million and total expense budget of 0.69 million with the actuals of 0.26, which is 38% expended compared to the budget. So, okay. So now I would want to talk about the fiscal year 24-25 year-end forecast. The forecast was calculated based on year-to-date actual as of January 31st, 2025, compared to prior year for the same period, and the ending balance for prior fiscal years. Here are some of the revenue assumptions we have for the year-end forecast. TOT is projected to remain flat. Property tax continues to show a strong growth and stability. Sales tax, because the consumers are more cost conscious, we are expecting it to come below 300,000 compared to the budgeted amount. And this forecast is also is also based on the sales and tax consultant HDL company. So when they ran the actual report for 2024 quarter 3, based on the actual received, they did this forecast saying we're going to receive 300,000 less than what was adopted initially for the sales tax. And then for EMS revenue, it remains strong with consistent collection, and we are anticipating to receive 43.1% more than what is budgeted for EMS. This increase is due to the rate increase and increase of transportation, like I mentioned earlier. The Measure T local sales tax, the estimated revenue for fiscal year 24-25 is approximately 0.7 million. And we will see the revenue starting April of 2025. So it's only for the last 3 months of the year. Other revenue, the interest revenue from investment remains strong, and for general fund, we're estimating 340,000. And as you all know, we have invested in long-term investment, which the forecast is to receive 955,000 return for this fiscal year for the investment, and that's including all funds. Reimbursement agreements continue to provide reliable funding for the city, so we're receiving reimbursement that was not initially expected. So, and some of the expenditure assumptions are that because of the salary savings, some of the position being vacant, the projected number is 3.95 million, which is lower than the adopted budget of 4.19 million. property services are expected to exceed the budget, and this is due to the higher utility costs and increase in the insurance premium like, general liability and other risk insurances. EMS billing contract, because of the higher number of transports and so there are higher customers, which is why like some of the accounts are uncollectible, including insurance denials and unpaid patient bills and financial hardship cases. We're seeing the cost going a little bit higher for the EMS billing contract for this fiscal year. Other cost reduction measure that city is taking to keep the expenditure cost low is we're continually monitoring the budget, and we're also controlling the cost by delaying or canceling, or I shouldn't say canceling, we're delaying or postponing the projects for this fiscal year, so in order to keep the expenditures down. Okay, so moving ahead, this bar chart shows the property tax forecast for fiscal year 24-25. We receive property tax twice a year, once in December and once in April. The property tax expects to exceed the budget of $5.5 million by $300,000. So we're expecting 5.8 for the year end. Next, the sales tax, which is general sales tax, Measure V, and public safety, and it is received 2 months in arrears. The sales tax consultant HDL has forecasted, because based on the 2024 third quarter actual numbers, the projected sales tax will be lower than what was initially forecasted by $300,000. So $300,000, which is less than, $300,000 less than the adopted budget of $6.8 million. And with Measure T, our sales tax is forecasted to be 0.7 million just for Measure T, and the total, including Measure T, would be $7.1 million. Okay. So for TOT, we're expecting the TOT to hold flat at $6 million. And then this is the big one where the EMS actuals is already at the budget level, and we're expecting it to reach at $3.3 million. And again, this is due to the rate increase and the number of transportation that has increased in 2024. Okay, so here's the graph for year-end revenue forecast by source. And then it just summarizes what I have just mentioned. Okay, so moving along to general fund expenditure, which is by category. We will have some salary savings due to vacant position during the fiscal year. The operating cost will exceed the budget, again, because of the higher utility cost and insurances for the property services. The professional service budget is expected to remain flat. However, to reduce these expenditures, we are proactively considering postponing certain projects to next fiscal year. Okay, so here is the general fund surplus and deficit. So when the budget was adopted back in July of last year, we were expecting $2.9 million deficit. However, based on the fiscal year 24-25 year-end forecast and the actuals number through now, we are now expected to close the year with $875,000 deficit, which is $2 million less than initially projected. And then lastly, here's the visual representation of the projected general fund reserve for fiscal year 24-25. It includes 8.2 million in unreserved, undesignated fund balance, 1.5 million in committed to emergency reserve, and 5.5 million restricted to operating reserve. So with that, I am here to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? All right. I have a, okay, go ahead. You go
Okay.
first, Councilmember
Yeah.
Dean.
Thank you so much. And the report is great and good news. And we are now running in deficit and from the 2.9 million right now and 0.8 million. That is great progress. My question maybe is too technical. I look at the result, that is correct. But these procedures remind me some of the numbers not match it.
So can you tell me what
Yeah,
number?
I can tell you the page 190.
Oh, that is.
And the general fund summary. I just took the first line, property and taxes. And the amended in the budget.
Oh, this one?
That's
Yeah, okay.
yeah, 5.5 million, right? And then, and the first 7 months, that is 3.162 million.
Right.
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 So then I do each this number annualized. Annualized,
Right, right.
and then I find out actually the budget finalized bigger than an actual number. So that doesn't make sense for me. And actually we received less, and then based on the original we approved amended the budget. So that maybe you have the different tool model.
I do actually.
Yes.
Yes, I
So
do.
I didn't see from the minor paper. That
Right,
is.
right. Here, right. So we did look at last 4 years of actual received for period 7, that is January, and did the average of how much it would be, and then came up with the projected numbers.
And then you made an adjustment.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'm very interested in how you do this kind of adjustment. Yeah, and later after the meeting, maybe you can show.
Right. I have a spreadsheet where
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
yes.
Otherwise, doesn't make no sense. At
Right.
all. Yeah.
No, I understand. So
Yeah.
it was based on the last 4 years of
Okay.
period 7, and then average it out, and then yeah.
In the first and the 7 month, and the later in the 5 month, you can make the
Yes,
adjustment.
yes.
Okay, very technical. Sorry, I don't want to offend you.
No.
But my profession,
No, I
let
and-
me ask
right.
this question.
And I appreciate that. That's
Okay.
good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
So I have a quick question just to be sure, and I'm assuming for the EMS that what we're showing there in regards to revenue is paid, is not, we're not looking at what's been billed, but we're looking at what's already been paid
So-
in.
Yes, exactly. So because of the HEPA, like we do not have any information on the patient or what or who is being billed or whatnot. All we know is this is the revenue we've received.
It's all
from the-
revenue received.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because one of the things would be interesting for us to look at going forward is whether or not they anticipate there could be any change in revenue due to issues of reducing Medicaid.
Transportation. Oh, yeah.
I'll just jump
Just
in
going
here.
forward, thank you.
I've had those conversations with the fire chief. They operate our ambulance service for us, so we are watching Medicare closely. If that does get cut, that does affect the revenue source. Currently, we're about 35% of our revenue on our ambulances paid through Medicare. So same issues with hospitals, but the fire chiefs around the county are working and following this very closely because it would affect the countywide ambulance service as well. So something we're going to definitely keep a close eye on and evaluate if anything comes out the federal government will evaluate and come back to council at that time.
Thank you. Great, good report. Thank you very much. Do we have other questions? No other questions? I would like to call for public comment.
Thank you again, Tom Conlon. Excellent report. I'm always interested in the numbers here, and I also look at the HDL tax reports at the county level because of the Measure M transportation funding, and the HDL reports usually give us a benchmark of where in this case, the county is relative to the state in the various different sales tax income categories. And so I was feverishly looking on my phone to try if I could find that last report, and I couldn't. But my recollection is that Sonoma's doing better than the state, although sales tax revenues are down statewide right now. But I was bringing the question forward because I think it's helpful for planning. The other point I wanted to make is that, yes, property tax is high, is up, and that's because we're a gentrifying community, and transactions are now quite expensive, and so we benefit from that as a tax recipient. The other thing is obviously EMS is up, which is a little bit uncomfortable. Maybe that's got to do with aging, maybe it's got to do with the unsafeness of our community. We just had another crash on Napa Street today, I think. So those are my takeaways from it. Thank you.
Yeah, just a comment on that. One of my concerns, I think one of the EMS is because we had a very significant flu, 2 types of flu, COVID, respiratory illnesses this year. And being an aging community, I think it is a good thing for us to really put extra analysis to, because it is a significant portion of our budget like, what are the trends? What are the trends that the hospital's seeing, just so we're prepared for it. We shouldn't be expecting that number is going to repeat itself, is what I would suggest, And what's the variation year to year would be a good thing to be watching.
And I'll just add that we do provide ambulance services throughout the valley and then also as needed in other locations. So just depends on the calls.
All right, so I think at this point, do we have any further discussion from the council? Yes.
This is actually just more of a comment. I would like to thank staff for not only the report, but for being vigilant in the past 7 months. I was uncomfortable with a budget deficit of 2.9, and to see the fact that you've taken this so seriously and knowing that we're held accountable to our constituents, that you've done a very admirable job of bringing it down to a point where I will be able to sleep tonight. So just wanted to thank you.
That's one of our jobs here, making sure that Vice Mayor Ron sleeps. So
I move approval of the mid-year budget update.
I second.
All right. So it's a budget one. Let's take a roll call for this.
Councilmember Gurney,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellander,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Mayor Farrar-Rivas.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Moving on, we have 9.4. We're going to be approving our mid-year budget amendments for
Mayor.
fiscal year 2024-25, and I'm going to bring it back to you.
So based on the conversation we have, I'm here to request the revenue budget adjustment and expenditure budget adjustment. So some of the revenues adjustment that I request is the $656,000 for Measure T, which increases the general fund budget, revenue budget. 1.53 Caltrans federal grant, which increases Fund 630 because we receive in Fund 630 and move it out to Fund 301 capital improvement. So requesting the increase in those funds. $120,000 allocated from general fund to cemetery fund, and this is for the columbarium project. And this was approved back in 2023 per Council Resolution 74-2023. But since we didn't have, the transfer did not happen in the past, which is why I'm bringing this along. And projects now, it's underway, so which is why we need this adjustment. And additionally, 25,000 transfer from general fund to public art fund for city's public art policy. And this was missed during our fiscal year 24-25 budget adoption, which is why we're bringing this ahead. On the expenditure side, again, for workers' comp and general liability adjustment, the actual invoices came way higher than what we anticipated during the budget process. And me and my staff, we did meet the vendor regarding the expenses for upcoming fiscal year. And they did mention that they will not know the actual numbers until late May. So, we might, I'm just giving council a heads up that this might be something which might be included in future budget adjustments too.
Yep.
$9,450 for the water utility due to the increase in water board invoices due to Supreme Court ruling. $50,000 for Fund 304 for electric bandwidth for the electric buses that our city manager mentioned earlier. $28,000 for the for vehicle replacement fund, that's Fund 603 for the critical fire ladder truck repairs, and again $25,000 for Fund 512 for the urban water management plan, which is scheduled to go in fiscal year 25-26. So these are the adjustments that I bring in front of you. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions from the council? No questions. Oh, I'm sorry.
Actually, and I want to direct this to the city manager, but are we seeing the same kinds of increases? I know we're self-insured for general liability and what have you, but are we seeing increases in those costs like we read about in the paper, 20%, 22% increases?
Yes, the last time when we talked, they did expect us to see 20% increase for the upcoming year, but they were really adamant, like, we cannot give you the numbers right now. It won't be until May of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but there is a big increase, yes.
And I'm sorry, just to add on to that, and we saw that, and we will see that through the contracts we have. We just met with the Sheriff's Department finance folks, and their increase is dictated a lot by some of this increase as well. So we're seeing that throughout.
My question is, any adjustment amended for unfunded retirement? I don't think so.
No, because those are paid beginning of the year. So when the budget is adopted, we know the UAL numbers. So, those have been adopted, and we've paid those invoices. So not at this moment.
Thank you.
And so now I can ask for, excuse me, am I at public comment? I am at public comment. Good. See, I keep remembering. Now I'm getting better. I want to keep doing it over and over again. So seeing none, all right. And we will move back to the council to see if you have any comments, any discussion. I am looking for approval.
I move to approve the proposed mid-year and budget adjustments for fiscal year 2024 to 25, authorizing necessary amendments to the cities and the budget to reflect updated revenue projections and expenditure requirements.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Rebecca Barr, our city clerk, please take the roll call vote.
Councilmember Gurney?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wellander?
Yes.
Councilmember Dean?
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe? Mayor Farrar-Rivas.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
We are now on item 10, but we do not have any members of the public. Oh, we do. 10. We had 10 before, so we're done. That's when you were going like this, I thought for sure something else I was doing wrong here. All right, okay. So thank you, everybody. So I will now adjourn the meeting.